Two teammate comes in though from the hands of Fire. Classic down the staircase trying to break in. Close spawns in the back. We're for the side of 18 and Crack. Now it's going to be Classic on a one-man mission with reinforcements yet to follow in tow. Around the corner, Zaptius will be able to find the first one, take a dip into the fountain, and find himself in safety up and towards the broken apartment. Shawnee's still there with a break from 18 and Crack on the loom. Villains have done a great job, not only this hard point being able to hold down multiple angles, but on this hill specifically being able to not allow 18 and Crack to break on it.
And even then, I mean, the point deficit is getting that much larger for 18 and Crack. So, I mean, this hard point is really looking not to be in their favor so far. But there it is, Assault with 2, able to go ahead and make things look a little bit more doable, finding the last 5 seconds there. But, I mean, scraps are only going to get you so far when you see the return on Villains grabbing so much time there in the front end of each site. So, I mean, we already see Glow on the edge looking to go ahead and find some kind of an angle from this left door. I mean, it comes down to whether or not you can have that break or whether or not you can really shut down 18 and Crack and just flux in. But they're not really too concerned about that. Already being on the site, already finding themselves about 15 seconds. They're looking pretty good here. Already breaking that 200-point threshold as well. Just setting up for probably what looks like success could be inevitable here if 18 and Crack doesn't make themselves a perfect couple plays here for these next couple sites.
You know, it's crazy because inconsistency has been the biggest problem for the Villains thus far, but a 32 and 16 double positive performance from Jintroid thus far has really been not only the standout, but a big reason why the Villains have been able to extend themselves around the map. And of course, Dapty is having 3-piece after 3-piece. Well, that's always going to be a nice little cherry on top. Either way, Assault, though, from the side, going to be looking for Fire over the top. We'll be able to find the shots and the kill. However, this is only going to equate to about 15 seconds of scrap time for 18 and Crack. So, sure, you're being able to bring yourselves back further and further, and you have set yourselves up on a rotation towards that bottom portion of the mini-map, but off-screen engagement's going to come through. The first one going to go to Classic. He'll actually find both of them there, and that's a huge set of kills here, because that's going to allow 18 and Crack to set up first at P5.
Most definitely is, and P5 can also be another one of those money hills with how small it is, how easy it is to break. I mean, you got to go ahead and make sure to have some kind of setup outside the site instead of just having everybody clustered inside, because we saw those grenades really just go ahead and have a spotlight in that last time around, but even then, it looks like Glow could have had a spotlight of his own there if he just found the double kill, but instead you see Assault trying to step back on, trying to go ahead and hold down this side, able to find a couple kills here and there and a couple times as well, but it's not going to be enough to go ahead and stop the Villains. Jintroid looking to go ahead and hold this out as long as possible, only 30 seconds left on the clock, but is it going to be enough? It's most definitely not, but they got to fall through as well because 18 and Cracked is looking to grab the rest of this.
Johnny found 3. Classic with 1. Fire, we were able to find a trade inside of that, but it was a 4-to-1 trade that allowed 18 and Crack to go ahead and lock down the time. One more hit here from the Villains. You have the north portion of your map in your favor. At least you did beforehand. But player number 3 and Shawnee's going to be the first one on the rotation, and Classic will lock down the last 5 seconds. So you've brought yourselves back in. All you need here is a good break, a good set of kills to come in front of you. And Shawnee could be the man who could do just that. You find the first, you find the second, you've broken your team in. You've got one more player there from the side of the Villains, and as Jintroid falls, 18 and Cracked have broken themselves in. A great nade from Fire, but Exceed has already pushed up the map. You can start getting even more time and eclipsing that 200-point mark, working your way even closer to the Villains 214.
Yeah, a massive turnaround here. Able to go ahead and lock down Village. You can already see him just all waiting in the back, looking for some kind of team break. And Jintroid looking to go ahead and get that strafing run down. Finding 2 is going to be massive for the likes of this team. But when you see Exceed absolutely stepping up, able to find 2 there to go ahead and trade out that kill streak in his alone, he's going to be a kill streak of his own. But Villains closing the gap here, making themselves look a little bit more of an advocate to close this one out. But with only 20 seconds left on the clock, 18 and Crack can still make this comeback. It's just going to be extremely unlikely if they don't go ahead and find themselves to get that gunpowder to fight up.
3 straight kills. Broken into the hill. Villains don't get any closer to that 250-point mark. And look at the mini-map now. Spread out. 18 and Cracked. You got player number 3 and Shawnee all the way down. He's going to be able to pick up that first kill. Second player in the hard point right now. That's player number 4 and Exceed. You're picking up the early time here. The Villains are going to have maybe 1 or 2 more opportunities to break this hill.
And even then, you can already see, I mean, Shawnee, it all comes really down to him and whether he can hold there into the back. And even then, going ahead, being that kind of one of a roadblock, doing his job, and absolutely masterful at that. Classic with 2 on that nade, Shawnee with 2 on that automaton, making a dynamic duo here to go ahead and close things out, making that point differential now go into the lead of 18 and Cracked, and it is on this last point as well. I mean, all things said and done, unless there's some contention here on the side, you're going to go ahead and find the end, and it looks like it go to 18 and Cracked.
What a break. Or at least an attempt at finding one. Assault, 5 in a row. 5 more points. A comeback in the making for Villains. It's been great so far. Adam Assault will find another 2. He did it earlier on, and another hard point. We'll finish it 8 in a row. 18 and Cracked will come back in map number 1 and win by 21 points.
What a turnaround for these guys here on 18 and Cracked. I mean, we didn't really expect them to do all that well, looking at the way they went ahead and got themselves warmed up. But, I mean, when they get warmed up, they get on fire. And there it is, to turn the things around on its head, to really get themselves back into being a conversation here. And especially when we look at the rankings and the standings and how well they've done prior to this, I mean, this one map alone, we kind of wanted a little more out of them. But, I mean, regardless of that, they still had themselves a great showing, able to go ahead and come out on top. I want to see S&D kind of be that turn for him to say, look, I mean, that was a little bit rocky for us, but it's not going to be matter all that much. We go ahead and get some Barkeeper's friend, wipe off that rust, and say, look, let's go next, and let's go ahead and close this one out.
Look, I mean, from the very beginning, you could credit Villains any way you'd like to, but they had a great start to that hard point. The midway was even better, but 18 and Cracked, they started to kind of flip the momentum, and once they did, they really didn't look back. And it's weird to say this, but I really didn't have much doubt in my mind that 18 and Cracked were going to be able to bring that map back. It was just a matter of time until they started to find a little bit of that momentum that they needed, and then execute upon that, and it's exactly what they did. I mean, coming into this, you know, for Hardpoint, at least 6-4 overall for 18 and Cracked. It's not the prettiest record overall. You improve that to 7-4 now, but I mean, you looked at the side of the Villains, they were 1-8 in Hardpoint overall, and one of the things I talked about inside of the Hardpoint specifically was consistency from Villains. We saw consistency for the first rotation hills and maybe halfway through the second. After that, it was completely different, though. You looked at Gentroid at 40 and 26 overall, but I mean, that's just one outstanding performance in a relatively mediocre rest of the slaying department.
Yeah, and even then we saw Zapti is able to step up every here and there and start fragging out and start going ahead and biding some time for the rest of his team. But I mean, it just didn't seem to be that consistency factor you mentioned earlier. I mean, inconsistency has been Villain's biggest kind of threat this entire season so far. And I mean, it all comes down to also the macro. The micro is just as equally important. You got to look at every single map and see whether or not those real highlight reels are actually doing something for your squad. Sure, it's great to go ahead and go off every here and there, but how much is that translating over to points? How relevant is that going to be in the big story of this game so far? And even then, it's not seeming to be enough when you already see that you're down a map.
Take a look at the map set here overall. We just saw the conclusion of a wild Tuscan for map number 1, 250 to 229. If you're just joining us or you missed it, feel free to go back and replay the ending of that because it was a wild one. Hell, even go halfway through it and watch the comeback start to mount for the side of 18 and Cracked. It's one thing that they've been able to do time and time again this season. They proved that they're able to do it yet again against the relatively weaker Villains roster, who again is already out of contention of making playoffs and qualifying for stage 2. But map number 2, Search and Destroy. We'll go to Desert Siege, one of 18 and Crack's best maps overall. And then, of course, we'll move on further in the series after that fact. But just talking about this next map on Desert Siege here, Mick, it's one of the maps that we see played but not played in a multitude of different ways. In the Challenger scene, it seems to be played a lot more back where we're more familiar with, at least right now in the CCL with Search and Destroy when it comes to it. Desert Siege is kind of that back afterthought for most teams.
Yeah, and it's a real shame, honestly. I love Desert Siege. I love the way it plays. I love how kind of close it is towards the middle of the map. You have all these buildings just kind of clustered up together, but teams are always looking for picks on the edge. They know they want to go for those bomb sites, and that's where they're going to be planted. Sure, you have both bomb sites on the outside, so you have to force those engagements. You have to break out a sniper, and I think that's probably why the CCL, they're not really too fond of that, because a lot of these players don't like breaking out the snipers after, especially last season in Cold War, where they were completely irrelevant. So a little bit of a learning curve, but I mean, these challenger players and these CDL players are much more accustomed to that. They're going ahead. They're looking to break out these snipers again. They're looking for a reason to find these first kills and find themselves an easy ahead and an easy trade-off for the rest of the round.
Well, we talk about scenarios and what we need to see teams do in order to make playoffs, or what's going to happen if they end up missing playoffs. At least right now, for the side of 18 and Cracked, the biggest thing that I can see from them personally is, of course, just taking the series will qualify them for playoffs and, of course, stage 2. For the side of Villains, again, we said they're already relegated, but a loss in this series for 18 and Cracked isn't going to be the prettiest blemish on the schedule. Number 1, number 2, it would put them in a situation where they're already in a 3-way tie with whatever it takes, as well as, I believe, I want to say, as well as, Texas Nation. So those are the 3 teams that are in a 2 or a 3-way tie, for second place overall inside of the standings in stage 1. At current, all those teams would end up making stage 1 playoffs, but losses for any of those teams would spell disaster. And kind of this match isn't the craziest overall, but the one we have to look to later on, which will be our second game here on the ClutchGG stream, will be UYU and Texas Nation. Either way, we'll find ourselves inside a Desert Siege. Fire going to be up in top, looking over the A bomb, but Frosty with a sniper will find that first blood in the round.
And that's going to be a massive trade-off for the rest of the squad to go ahead and find that first blood for the likes of Villains. That's going to be just really play the trades here. Go ahead, find a 1-for-1, 1-for-1, 1-for-1. You're going to come out on top eventually. And even then, Villains having the momentum as well to have the bomb in hand. Go ahead and set the tone. Decide where the bomb's going to go and where you're going to see these 18 and Cracked players go. But even then, Shawnee's already going to go off, find a blood of his own, make sure to trade that out, make things look even. And a non-traded kill is definitely good to spell themselves to look a lot more potential for this round. But how much is it really going to do until you see that bomb come down?
Classic doesn't know that Zaptius is playing in the corner. Zaptius might have heard the slide from Classic. Challenge around the corner. Out now, Zaptius will win the gunfight. Technical trade across the map. 2 versus 2 we go. 38 seconds left. Bomb down over at the A site. Johnny with the AR will jump around the corner. Nobody there just yet. They're trying to set up a pinch play here on 18 and cracked. Jintroid, the last one alive. We saw crazy things in map number 1. Can you pull off a 1 versus 2 clutch here early in the search and destroy? The rotation gonna have to be bold.
Even then, you could see just his body go through that train card if you were just right there on time, but it's not even going to matter. You already see Shawnee able to close things out there. I'm surprised they didn't just go ahead and pressure that defuse. Go ahead and get it going down, because at the end of the day, I mean, sure, you want to find those kills. You want to find those kill streaks on top of that to give you that intel, but I mean, just speed up these rounds, baby. You know exactly what's going on. You know that these players can be looking for this bomb eventually, and they're probably going to come from a flank, but if you just go ahead, play that prone game, he picks off the first player, and the other one's defusing in the meantime, it could have been done by them, but not too much pressure. 18 and crack still coming out on top, finding that first round. A great setup for them to go ahead and get the round into their favor, but starting on defense as well. So can they double down? Can they find it on offense? And that's going to be a much different story here if they can't find that first blood again.
People always ask, oh, why is the mini-map blocked? Well, that is obviously by player request, as you can see on top of it, but more importantly, it allows your team to try out new things, specifically before playoffs, and if teams want to go back and watch the VODs, they can't look at the mini-map and say, okay, this is kind of the setup that they make early on instead of a round, or this is what they do on a defensive round here. So it allows you to at least have a one-up on your opponent if they go back and watch some film, and it's not as easy for them to decipher your movements. Either way, still 4 versus 4, about 30 seconds knocked off the clock. Bomb hasn't been working its way over towards a specific site yet, but it looks like it is going to be making its way towards B. Jintroid with a nice first blood here for the villains, and a good start to the round here. Gets 18 and cracked.
And even then, I mean, the way they've set themselves up, they haven't even needed a sniper to do it until now, when you see Glow able to go ahead and find one of his own, looking for that kill, and even then, Exceed, looking for that trade, but it's just not going to come out. Already in a 1v3 scenario, only having a sniper in hand, you got to sit there and make sure to go off with a pistol, but instead you're going to go off the map. You're going to find yourself 6 feet under villains with the round as well. So we always notice these attacking sides, at least that's kind of the differential we've seen so far, is that the attacking side wants to go ahead and run to the snipers. Run it over to B site, see if you can find yourself an easy, quick frag, and say, all right, this side of the map is open now. Do we want to go ahead and put the pressure over here, get another player to allocate, and then get some kind of a fake plant towards that A site? Or do we really want to double down on B, get all of our resources in here, and start looking for a post? Because B is a much, much more difficult to defend. So I'm looking forward to see how villains can double down, see where they can get themselves back into this game, and even then, if they can find it purely off frags, or whether or not it's from pressure of the Braum.
Pressure on the offensive side over towards that A site. Assault and Classic playing on the rooftops here, looking over towards the train side of things. Bomb still hasn't made its way all the way up the map just yet. Nobody getting overzealous on the side of villains, putting themselves in a bad position, getting picked off the board by the defensive side. Again, on the defensive side here, you really can just afford to sit back, wait for the offensive team to push out towards you, get those first picks, and then be able to make your round off of that. Spots a couple of players out over towards A. Shots are going to rain through, but nothing just yet, except Exceed comes through with a nade and a first blood on a Jintroid.
That's a great first one already to go ahead and get on the clock. You go ahead, sit there and say, instead of getting that intel, getting that damage, you're saying, I have an entire frag. We sit there, we go ahead, have our numbers advantage. Once again, we got to get this bomb down somewhere, and villains have definitely done that. But still being in a 3v4, 18 and crack has to speed things up. They can't be looking for picks, so they're a little bit too slowly. You go ahead and see the glint from that sniper, sadly enough, but it's enough of a call there for Assault to find the kill. Shawnee to follow through. Everybody going ahead and looking at this site, but Zaptius has to make a move now and do it instantaneously, because he's in the reverse shoe, so 1v4, and it's not going to work out. And it's going to go exactly according to plan for him.
Comes over the train, tries to get onto the site, didn't realize a player was defusing, had 3 players staring down at the building, just waiting for him to jump on out. So, this map, rather round number 3, doesn't necessarily go in the way of the villains, we'll say. At the same time that this match is going on, you can go ahead and find whatever it takes in Bearclaw Esports, going ahead and playing out through their best of 5 series. That's another match with a lot of playoff implications. Of whatever it takes wins that series, they're guaranteed to slot themselves in playoffs. More importantly, though, that's on youtube.com/COD Challengers. Go check that out. That's our main stream here for Challengers and everything, while it's also your home for all Challengers with Mr. Proper and, of course, Infinity carrying you on through it.
Too gorgeous, man. But even then, I mean, if we're talking gorgeous, that's a gorgeous shot over just for Frosty to go ahead and start out this round. I mean, a great way to open things up. It was possibly looking for a second one. Even gets a peek on the player, so you know that bomb's possibly moving towards the B side with how many players have already started looking over there. I mean, it's not just some kind of move, some kind of eye where you're like, you obviously don't know who has the bomb, but when you see that many peaks, you kind of go ahead and start to get a hunch of saying they probably have some kind of a plan. They're scheming something here. But even then, just in case, I got it held down. I know that players aren't here anymore. You're looking to go ahead and get the rotations. There it is. Villains here for the answer on the A side already.
2 versus 3. 38 seconds left. Classic looking up to Gintroid. Trying to find at least a few shots maybe to pepper that player up. But now it's a 1 versus 3. Classic doesn't even realize that there's a player coming through on the flank at the same time. So as Glow Frosty will challenge from one side with a pistol, Zaptius will be flying in from behind with an MP40. We'll take the round there quickly as the villains will go ahead and tie yet another round up here 2-2. We're dead even through the first 4 rounds. Offense and defense is trading back and forth.
And even then, it's looking to favor defense a little bit more. I mean, that's the consistency we've seen. We've seen players go ahead, get themselves a little bit of a momentum shift when it comes around to 18 and cracked on that defensive end. But, I mean, they got to go ahead and step up on this offense. We just haven't seen too much of a plan executed. We haven't seen really too much bombs being down and being protected at that as well. I mean, they go ahead and they can collaborate to get onto a bomb site pretty easily once they have that idea in mind to break it on defense. But when it comes to offense, just integrate that same mentality. We're seeing some kind of a shift here, which just really isn't playing for their favor.
Sniper around the corner. Won't spot anything out just yet. Villains still trying to work their way over towards the A-bomb. 4 up for each team. 18 and cracked. Holding down the buildings, you're actually going to be able to spot out fire. As he runs over towards the bomb, that should be good information to allow everybody from 18 and crack to start making the pinch in, push on over. Assault will be the first one there. Fire's going to hop up. Actually didn't go ahead and put the bomb down just yet. That was a beautiful play from the side of the villains to go ahead and catch the players off guard. However, it doesn't really work out all that much as they anticipated, as Fire will jump around the corner into the line of fire. Shawnee, who was taking shots at Gintroid, will hop over towards that right side. It'll be a 1 versus 2. Bomb still down on that B site.
Shawty's stepping up here. I mean, a player that I've seen time in, time out absolutely just do some work here. I mean, going ahead and bring that continuity there. Able to go ahead, find the kill, find the double down, and make sure to give his team that advantage they need. But when you only had 25 seconds left on the clock, you're finally doing this defensive job. You're putting the pressure on, you're denying the plant, and you're sitting there saying, all right, Gintroid's alive. What resources does he have? He's usually an AR player, but instead he's going to pick up a sniper this time around to see if he can find something on the long lineup. But still, that's not enough. You got to go ahead and get that bomb down. Even then, you got to stay alive to do it as well. And you just go ahead and find yourself falling short, falling into another round down, and 18 and cracked, able to go ahead and find themselves another one.
The defensive rounds have been winning round after round after round thus far. We've handshaken 5 different rounds of defense between both of these two teams. The real question always comes, especially here on Desert Siege, which team will be able to break that mold and find their first offensive round? It's also difficult with how many angles there are, how much elevation there is on the map where defenders can just sit there and wait for you to plant either the A or the B bomb, and going over towards B is almost a death sentence every time. So you see Villain sitting up inside of the middle building, and C going to be the first one pushed up the map. You've got the bomb still making its way in towards the middle building too. You just want to find the first blood if you're the offensive team, and that's not exactly what I meant.
Yeah, I mean, when we said break into the middle building, I don't know if breaking your skull open was kind of what we were thinking. But, I mean, even then, at the end of the day, you still find yourself going ahead, following suit. If things really just pan out and we don't see Assault and Shawnee step up, it's going to be a handshake once again, finding these defensive rounds once again to come out on top. So, you just got to find some kind of a differential. And there it is. It's not going to be too different this time around when you already see that Assault's going to be the last player standing, already going ahead, getting circled around, and finding himself to fall short on this round as well. So Villains coming out with a win. Handshake once again on that defense. I mean, I'm feeling Villains is going to be set up for an offense here. I mean, looking how the game's been going thus far, they went ahead, set the tempo, found that first round, going ahead and saying, look, let's go ahead, back up, back up, back up, back up. They at least get the bomb down. They have gone ahead and checked at least one more box than 18 and cracked has on that offending side. So I feel like if they just look for a better setup, if they go ahead and adapt around this and find themselves a better post plant, things could look a lot different for them, and they could go ahead and find that first attacking round we're really just talking about.
Another offensive try here. Hopefully, if you're the son of Villains, you don't go ahead and nade yourself in a teammate. That would be rather unfortunate. 18 and cracked exceed, holding the sniper lane all the way over towards that A site. Stun check going to come through. They get some information on the set of 18 and cracked of where the Villains players will be pushing here on the offensive side. As Assault makes their way over towards the right, and their nade over the top might be able to open up something. Information. And a beautiful little toss over the top will take down Fire. 4 versus 3 in an offensive round that falls apart. I'm not sure how he didn't get that shot off, but more importantly, get the kill for it.
I mean, how do you get a hit marker when you only see the head and you don't find... you know, I ain't even going to ask.
You know better than anybody else, Mick. 1 versus 4. Zaptius will find the first one. It's going to be oh so difficult to be able to come back in that round. Yet another defense. It just seems like whatever team gets the defensive side to start things off is going to be able to take a Desert Siege map, specifically when you're getting picked every single time on the offense. Very difficult to go ahead and really figure out what adjustments you want to make, except maybe bum rushing the middle of the building with 3 or 4 people.
Yeah, and even then, I feel like the way things really are panning out so far is, I mean, sure, attacking starts with an A, and we see each one of these teams hitting the A site every single time. I want to see someone of a switch up, even though you know the pressure is going to be there towards B. You know a player's going to be on the outside, probably with an automaton. If Shawnee can find that first frag, I say rush it. See what you can do, and there it is. Just go ahead, get it down quickly. It's a very, very contested spot. It's right there in the corner. It's easily fraggable. You haven't really invested enough utility to go ahead and make that trade-off yet, so I say make that investment later on, move towards the B side, and it looks like 18 and Crack can hear me because they're already making the move.
Yeah, I actually would have liked to see 18 and Crack maybe stick back over towards that A side, but as well Frosty's there, Fire's actually going to be able to find Classic on the bomb because nobody was watching over. Well, Shawnee was trying to at least, but when Frosty took that angle on Shawnee and was able to knock him off the board, it allowed Fire to push straight into the belly of the beast. He'll find the second here in the round via the way a headshot for the second kill. Glow Frosty versus Assault. You'll find the first couple of shots onto the player and the kill to follow after the fact. You'll jump down from below, able to dip dive and dodge around. Somehow, okay. I thought that aggressive challenge with a pistol there might have been able to find Gintroid and then have been an incredible round, and that would have been one hell of a way to open up an offense here on Desert Siege. Either way, it falls apart, thankfully, for the villains, and we're tied at 4-4.
You know, it's the first time we saw actually 18 and Crack get themselves a bomb plan. Even though it really didn't have the follow-up we expected, we saw Assault go off there. Go ahead and make them play with the pistol in hand. Honestly, at that stage, I understand that Shaq is somewhat penetrable, but you got to go ahead and move around, play, go, do your little dancey dance and see if you can go ahead and dodge those bullets as best as possible to just bide out that time. See what you can do across the map and save that utility to go ahead and give yourself that leg up. And we just didn't see those plays. We didn't see the kind of positioning that 18 and Crack needed for that post plant because everything fell apart so instantaneously. But we already see villains right back to where they started, getting themselves onto attack, seeing if they can really do anything here.
Oh, look at how close they are around the corner. Last time it was Exceed versus Zaptius. This time it's Exceed versus Fire. Just around the corner. Fire will actually spot the player, run back over towards the left. Nade won't be able to find anything, but Zaptius will find the first blood here on the offensive round. So that's big. Now you can pick what site you want to push to. Play a little bit more aggressive. Getting up the map. But Shawnee is just watching all the way on the opposite side of the map. Yeah, sure, these shots and this kill might count for something, but unless they work it over towards that B site, you're basically giving up A for free.
Yeah, you most definitely are, and even then, that's what's been the team has been hitting every single time out. I mean, Villains is loving this A side, but they're finally making a shift towards B. They're finally setting up for it, and I think the differential is kind of taking 18 and Cracked off guard. They're not really understanding it too much. They're not really trying to go ahead and adapt around it. They're going ahead, still having their default setup, and they're all extremely isolated. But Assault finding one is going to be a good trade-off, making it now a 3v2. Fire still has the bomb in hand and has to make a move, and even then, exchange on the side. You mentioned handshakes time in and time out. Well, we better handshake ourselves to another one, because Villains going ahead and being a little bit more dominant this time around, able to find that first attacking round, get themselves to a match point.
With the first offensive round coming to the hands of the Villains, 18 and Crack now have to win themselves an offensive round. It should have, or at least look like it should have been an offensive round win the round previous before Villains were able to take that offensive stand. But unfortunately, there towards the end, it was after that first snipe that came through from Frosty that took an angle away from Shawnee that they were able to push up the map and Fire pops a double and then is able to walk away with a kill. So now 5-4 overall, Villains up inside of the Search and Destroy, trying to tie the series up 1 apiece. 18 and Crack are going to have to win 2 straight rounds of Search and Destroy if they want to see the light of the day of a 2-0 lead.
And the funny thing about this is that we've seen either the closest attempt for 18 and Cracked and the actual round 1 for the likes of Villains is all going to be around that B side. And I think there's going to be a little bit more influence to that, a little bit more pressure, knowing that Villains are saying, look, that's what 18 and Cracked have the most success with. You're going to see Gintroid on the outside, but A is going to be hit this time around. You're already going to see Classic putting that bomb down, getting it very quickly. So that's going to be the biggest differential so far. Can he get out alive, though, is the biggest problem. He sat there, had a little bit of a peek. Fire already knowing where he is. Throwing out the nade, but Classic turns it around, finds that kill. That's an advantage for 18 and Cracked, and they may actually be able to pull this out now.
I thought he was going to be able to pop off Classic with the nade there, but Assault is going to be able to find the second kill. Frosty, though, with a sniper, if you're Adam, you just got to back off here. You cannot allow Frosty to be able to pick you with a sniper. They're almost able to get it. See the reload now coming in. The slide challenge back around the right side. Slowly peeking this angle. Gotta check the bomb here if you are the side of 18 and crack. That might give Glow Frosty an opportunity in and in to be able to get the snipe off here. But with 8 seconds left, not being able to push on the site, you're just gonna back off for now, not let any of the players from 18 and crack have an opportunity to get any more kills for streaks that could be later on down inside of round 11. But we will force that final round here in the search and destroy. Despite the first 8 rounds going back and forth and sharing defenses, we'll go offense for offense in the final 2.
Just handshake for handshake here. And I got to say, I really enjoy the respect from these two teams to go ahead and step things up when it really matters the most. But 18 and Crack, they're the ones who really had the pressure on the line, knowing that, sure, handshakes are only going to get us so far. They're going to get us, into conversations, but we got to go ahead and secure some deals. These are the handshakes we really need. And I think right here to go ahead, once again, double down, find themselves going back to their defense setup where they went ahead and had a lot of success thus far. They're actually going to be on the attacking side this time around. So they got to double down. And even then, go ahead. Classic gets a little bit of a warning shot saying, look there, buddy, he is not the hit this time.
Shawnee's life just flashed before his eyes. Nade gonna be in up towards the top, and Exceed walks away with a huge kill right off the rip. Remember, they're on the offensive side this time. Villains can just play a bit more passive and wait for the side of 18 and crack to come to them. However, now with that first blood being off the board, you got 55 seconds to make your way either towards the A or the B site. And another nade takes Gintroid off a power position. So now it's a 4 versus 2 with 18 and cracked in a stellar position to be able to take a 2-0 lead.
Even then, I mean, this is now a 4v2. You had the setup. You got to play passively, just play back. And there you go. Shawnee doing exactly that. Playing with his team. No real push onto a bomb site yet. They're just going ahead and saying, look, they're probably going to go for something crazy. They're getting desperate here. And Exceed doing the same thing in desperation. Pushing up the map, getting aggressive, being where he's supposed to be, and able to find that kill there. Going out on top, 18 and cracked. Once again, a comeback they needed to go ahead and step things up. And they do it when it matters most.
Desert Siege in round 11, it's not the most uncommon thing in the world. We definitely see this map go the distance most times. It plays very, very slow, but at the same time, you can find success with a bit more of an aggressive push. We'll look back at statistics here in just a second, but just to name one off the top of the head, double positive there from Adam Assault, 12 and 6 overall was a huge reason. Not only they were able to win some of those defensive rounds, but once we got in towards those last few on the offense, was able to find a first blood or two, and more importantly, got himself pushed up the map in the way that only he knows how to. Overall, a compelling search and destroy. The problem is once again, the villains fall in a very, very closely contested matchup. Now their season and, well, everything that rides on at least one series win comes in the form of having to reverse sweep. Now 18 and cracked are one map away from securing themselves not only a playoff spot, but qualification for stage 2.
Yeah, and I mean, you can look at these stats, man. I mean, we just see Assault absolutely going out. I mean, this is the guy that had to step up, and I want to say if anybody's going to be accredited for these rounds where you really go ahead and get yourself the offense, it's going to be him. Just going ahead, setting that tone, setting that tempo for the likes of his team to say, look, they're beatable. I mean, they just don't have the best setup, so we can go ahead and find ourselves a little bit of a break and get onto these sites. But, I mean, it was the defense time in and time out that really, really made this man fluff his KD a little bit more, so looking outstanding so far. But even then, that's that last map. We got to go ahead and talk about Tuscan for this control because, I mean, we sit there, see 18 and cracked able to set things up for these last 2 maps, but they were comebacks each time. Are we going to see something like that once again when you see that you don't really get the side advantage of flipping back and forth when control, if you get around to that round 3, things all come down to frags?
Overall, Path to Pro was the team that 18 and crack played on their only Tuscan Control. It was a 3-0 that they were able to take against them. So if history repeats itself, we could be seeing 18 and cracked finish out this series with a nice 3-0 sweep overall. And of course, securing themselves a playoff spot and qualification for stage 2. That's the biggest thing that's riding here for 18 and cracked. Villains, you're coming into this with nothing to lose. And Mick, the one thing that is scarier than anything else is a team that knows they have nothing to lose and play like they have nothing to lose. Problem is, though, 18 and cracked have clutched up twice already, namely in map number 1, where it was a very close 21-point win, and then a round 11 search and destroy in map 2. Will it be the same thing here on a Tuscan Control? At least, again, from what statistics show previous and how they played against a very good team in Path to Pro, I would probably say this is going to end with a nice little win column for 18 and cracked, and of course, that 3-0 sweep that they wanted since the beginning.
And I'm sure they wanted 3-0 sweep, but I'm sure they can go ahead and find a leeway to find it inside of control. I mean, it's not going to be over the series, and they can do it to close out the series, but not as efficiently as they wanted to. So it's some kind of a compensation. They could go ahead and find a 3-0 in control and see if that'll suffice for the time being. But Villains, once again, as you already said, a team is absolutely frightening when they have nothing to lose. I mean, you go ahead, you look at the defaults, you look at the way they play search and destroy, they get a little bit more overzealous, a little bit more aggressive, and that's because they don't have to worry about setups anymore. They don't have to worry about strats. They can say, look, we can hold that off for right now. Let's be the villains that our name entails. Let's go ahead and just literally our entire job now is to make everybody's job harder. Because, I mean, we don't want to sit there and make ourselves look like we can be stomped on for next time around either. So, I mean, the way they're playing the game right now, I could see some kind of a switch up when it comes around to control, especially on Tuscan, where you can lock down those spawns to get yourself towards the defending spawn. Yep. But, I mean, that would be a massive setup for villains if they even find that break eventually, because that's over towards B site, and that's a much more difficult site to really even look at and consider.
Overall, just coming into this match, we talked about records for both of these teams in Hardpoint and Search and Destroy specifically, but a 2-4 record overall for Control for the side of the villains does not bode well against the 4-2 record from 18 and Cracked. But more importantly than that, I do want to say, coming into this Elite Qualifier and then into Stage 1, villains were a team that caught a lot of people's eyes because of the early season form that some of these players had last year in Cold War. Namely, what I think of when I think of early season standouts was Fire last season. And we thought maybe it would be that same kind of passion that Fire would see, not to be a play on words, that was just kind of a bump in the road there. But more importantly than anything else, it was just saying, okay, is this player going to come out with that same intensity that we saw last season? We were hoping so. We thought that we might be able to get to see that this season in Stage 1, and it seems like after they were able to qualify, it just has not been a same passion-filled roster. It's just been close games and some close series that have just slipped away from them, namely where they have advantages and then they just end up losing them. And it sucks to say, but personally, I think that villains will most likely be making a roster change after Stage 1. I'm sure a lot of people feel the same way. Mick, do you feel that way too?
I mean, quite honestly, yeah, I'm definitely with you. I feel like it's definitely warranted for them here. I mean, because you sat there and said that over the course of the season, they go ahead, find themselves leads, and when they have it, almost looking like it's going to be definitive, they just kind of get it swept away from them. Funny enough, we've seen that twice already today alone inside this exact series. So, I mean, that's a big problem for them. You got to go ahead and kind of keep your foot onto the pedal no matter what until you know you've crossed that finish line. You can't roll into that last ribbon. And, I mean, I'm just not seeing that same energy out of them. You see them going ahead, being absolutely explosive off the get-go, going ahead, having themselves a lot to work with. But it's almost like once you get to that end stage, you're just saying, all right, let's go ahead and start conserving for the next. Let's go ahead and just see what we can save up. See if we could just keep this momentum going, and let's just run off a roll here for a little while to save the energy to be that much more explosive. And it always bites you in the rear. I mean, we've seen that twice now just today alone, and I'm just not liking the look of it. Villains needs to be just the same team that we see from start to finish instead of start to halfway through.
Well, before we hop into this match, Bear Claw Esports, whatever it takes, still on the main channel. 2-1 up inside of the Control right now is Bear Claw Esports, but 2-0 up in the series is whatever it takes. Again, if whatever it takes does take that series, then they will guarantee themselves qualification for playoffs and for Stage 2. That's on youtube.com/COD Challengers. Once again, that's youtube.com/COD Challengers. Tab that and this open at the same time so you can keep up with all the Challengers action that's going on at current. But again, that's your home for all Challengers content this season, and of course, the mainstream that we will be going off of here when we come into playoffs for Challengers. Either way, villains 18 and Cracked, our main match here. We'll talk about this more, and as Fire is going to be the first one there, Gentroid will open things up, but Shawnee with a quick double here in the Control will knock 2 lives off the board for the villains.
Even then, a great little start here for Shawnee to go ahead and get that momentum rolling, saying, look, 2 kills. I mean, you go ahead and find one little trade out, but we got to make sure to have these lives advantage for us. And there it is, Classic on the edge, holding out that church, saying, look, I don't need to push A with y'all. If I just find some control around B, if I just find the correct kills, there it is. Back and forth, just time in, time out. They're finding it, and they're already hitting B on top of it as well.
Gotta get yourself the first bit of progress over on that B zone. Around the corner, Fire will be able to walk away with 2 big kills. Gentroid and Glowvelocity will clean up those last couple, and I actually don't think they got the entire tick on B. They didn't. So if you're villains, you can go ahead and bring this all the way back down to absolute 0. Back over towards A, though. Here comes 18 and Cracked on another push. And number 5, they gotta look to Gentroid, who's on the flank. You're able to find one. You go for the second. Classic will trade it out immediately. But Zaptius is just playing as a sneaky bugger up in towards the top of the apartment building. So hop on into the point. Shawnee will find yet another double early on here in the game. That's 3 in a row.
Shai just picking things out, able to go ahead and grab a picture of the scene and figure out what's going on here to give the calls for his teammates. And even then, he's not really too concerned about it going overzealous just yet. You go ahead and see that they're sitting on 2 ticks for A side, only sitting at 46 seconds. So you have yourself, if you go ahead and fall short here, you go ahead and get wiped out. You only have about 2 more breaks left to really get yourself onto a side. But Classic able to find one. Whether or not you want to switch over to B side, you already have a player allocated to that side of the map. So that's a big problem looking at these guys with 30 seconds left, only 18 or 14, excuse me, lives remaining as villains turn up the frags.
Frosty from around the corner. You look back to the middle of the map where you don't realize that Classic's going to be pushing from, but you get the awareness and the shots, more importantly, the kill that follows with it. 4 down here for the villains. You can start making your way up the map, 18 and cracked. What do you do here? Do you push over towards A? Do you push over towards B? Well, the answer, quite frankly, is going to be just nothing because the villains have locked down every angle possible in the map. You're not going to be pushing out of your spawn.
Well, they've already killed Glow, who is inside their spawn. I want to say that the response should have been a little bit quicker. They push the middle of the map, and they start really just kind of saying and deducting their options here, saying, look, what can we do? Do we go ahead and push for A, as you said, or do we map across the map and go to B? I mean, and those decisions can be made when you go ahead and paint yourself a larger picture of what's going on. And they just didn't have that. Isolating themselves time in, time out, going to A, going to B, going to A, going to B, and trying to switch things up and then trying to hold down A when there's only 1 tick of progress. You sit there and spend a lot of front end time running all the way to B and kind of wasting that time off the get-go, because the time they actually started to look like they had a run, it was only about 45 seconds left on the clock. That's a big problem. And you can already see Dylan's able to go ahead and double down and say, look, we're not doing that same thing.
2 players making their way through the church, back and wrapping around towards the A site, trying to flank the player number 4 in Shawnee, who's made the way and looks towards the spawn side of the villains. Zaptius around the corner, looking for the quick spawns of 18 and cracked. Will be able to find themselves in a nice pinstripe kill feed, but with Zaptius, who will go on 3 in a row now. Be looking for 2 more and a potential streak to go on top of that. B progress for the villains, going to be stopped here for the moment's time. As you look back over towards A, there's nobody there except an 18 and cracked defensive player, and Exceed, who's getting the rest of the kills off of this B zone.
Even then, you already had the calls there, but even then, it doesn't matter because Exceed just going off there, finding a double frag to go ahead and clear out that entire B side or entire half of the map at that. But I mean, no ticks of progress have been made yet. You're sitting at 52 seconds. You haven't found anything at this stage in the game. 18 and Crack found 2 ticks of time over at A, and they just couldn't go ahead and hit it again. But they have themselves a lot of advantage this time around. They're just fragging out. They're going in and clear these guys in the middle of the map, and they're contesting the side as well to go ahead and bite out that time. And finally, find the kills, go ahead and diminish that side a little bit and find a setup. But Gentroid looking for some kind of crazy play, but can't really execute.
Triple hit over towards B. The only one there from 18 and cracked is Exceed. He's going to be able to win the first gunfight off screen. Glow Frosty now going to be trying to bring up the rear of the villains roster. You're the only one left at B if you are on this offensive side, and great shots from Shawnee are going to allow them to lock everything down over towards B. So you've done a great job at prohibiting time. Most importantly, you dwindled that down to 30 seconds. So even if the side of villains go ahead and take this entirety of this A site here, not losing any more time, you only have 1 minute and 30 left to get back over towards B, and you're down by 4 lives. That's not a great win condition when you're on offense.
It's most definitely not, and I like what Classic's doing here. Just playing it slow and steady, saying, look, that's probably a lot of guys there. I know that time is ticking up really fast. It's more than 1 player there. I don't want to fight that just yet, and we still have the life advantage. So I'm not going to play overzealous here. I'm just going to play it slow and steady. If they go ahead and start pushing B time in, time out, hold these spawns down, make sure they don't get behind us, and let's go ahead and keep this frag up for us. And as they're still up 4 kills, even though we see villains slaying out right here, they just haven't made themselves towards the B site yet. Playing control in the middle of the map, not really able to make too much moves just yet, but with some progress to possibly come out here soon, so long as, Exceed doesn't find a little bit more picks there on the edge.
Zaptius down the staircase. You've worked your way into the back spawn. You've brought the lives a little bit closer. You continuously trade out with the side of 18 and cracked. If you're on the side of the villains and you're on the offensive push here, you just got to make sure you can control yourselves. Don't get too aggressive. Push as a cohesive unit. You have 5 lives remaining. 40 seconds. You have 1 last final push as a team. After that, it's just going to be scattering around, trying to make sure that 1 or 2 players can maybe just get the amount of kills needed and necessary. If this does go to a round 5, it is going to be determined upon kills, who gets the offense and who gets the defense. Assault Classic will pair for 2. Once again, it's looking more and more like an 18 and cracked round win here with nobody on the point. 20 seconds left and only 3 lives for the villains.
I mean, to only be expected, they got to get themselves a defending round. And even then, looking on attack, I thought they were going to be a little bit lackluster in the slaying department again. I mean, they didn't have themselves too many kills. They had themselves not too much of a life advantage. And it was diminishing pretty quickly here. But they've done a much better job here, going ahead, shutting down villains, making sure to only have 2 players left. And that's going to be a pretty good setup if this does theoretically go to that overtime that they were looking for to find themselves on the defense once again. But to go ahead and not really get a sight. In terms of objectives, they didn't really have too much presence there, but the kills definitely were here to follow up in that last one.
Quick rounds back and forth on the defensive side. Teams will come on top. More importantly, though, I want you to direct your attention to Classic, who's on 4 in a row. 1 kill here will earn a glide bomb. 2 kills will be both streaks. One of those will be fighter pilot as well. You have both of those to work with here on offense. Got to go over towards that A zone first. You're going to be able to get that first bit of progress in towards the middle of the map. Players number 1 and 6 are right dancing around each other. Don't exactly know where they are just yet, but as Gentroid finds the first with a nice nade over the top on to Exceed. First bit of progress today is complete.
Most definitely is, and even though you can already see exchanges and kills coming out for both sides, but it comes down to whether or not you can translate that to time. Gentroid trying to look for some frags, trying to look for some players that are sitting on the A side, knowing that progress is going up. At 1:22 already, you have found 2 ticks of progress. This is completely different from what we saw out of 18 and Crack that first time around. Going ahead, looking for that B hit initially. I like the play to go ahead and get that much closer to the spawn to set up for the flank whenever it comes around to A, but I mean, they're just going ahead with the tried and true this time around. Able to go ahead and capture that site, move themselves over to B now and saying, look, let's play it slow towards A and see if we can push to that site. Push for these spawns and then go ahead and get a flank. And even then, you can see it doing its work at the Assault finds too.
Always risky to go hit B directly off the rip as well. One of those things where it's like, okay, we could throw a bunch of lives away and maybe get a tick of progress, or we could go to A, get ourselves an extra minute, and then start to work the lives down, and that's exactly what they've opted to do just so far. Seed on 2. Mick alluded to earlier, Assault will get streaks for the side of 18 and Cracked. Was having a relatively bad start to this game, I think we could all say. With those streaks, doesn't really matter what happened after the fact. 2 lives separate the offense and the defense on the latter half of that, but can go ahead. Stop this frontward assault from 18 and Cracked around the corner. Zaptius will be there, but Glow Frosty will shut down Assault from the front. So now it's going to be a reinforcement, and of course the spawns in from 18 and Cracked all the way back on that left portion of the minimap.
You can already see them trying to go ahead and get some church control, push through that middle rubble right there and get themselves on the site in Classic, going ahead being at the front end of that. But the rest of the team now flushing right through, looking to hit that right door coming from their spawn, and just go ahead and flood out to this B side. And it's going to be a complete flank from Zaptius, and if you don't have a player moving up in the map and able to find that flank and go ahead and shoot him in the back, it's not going to be that big a deal. But Assault going ahead dropping that dive bomb. I'm going to go ahead and get that intel and say, look, here's where the players are. What are we going to do with that? Well, Exceed's going to move to the middle of the map. The players are going to start setting up around the site, but they're not exactly going to touch it because they don't want to get that intel away just yet while they have the advantage.
Nice kill from Exceed. Frosty will try to find one on the Classic, but Exceed with a double. And Classic coming in for more help. That's 4 down here. Now 18 and Crack can push themselves up onto the B point. Gentroid will come from behind. 1 for a flank. Glow Frosty is there, but it's still 2 players now. Make it the last one here. Exceed will go big for 1. You look for the second, but it's going to be so difficult when you're trying to fight against 3 players coming off spawn. But guess what, Mick? You do enough to get the second tick of progress. Now, with 55 seconds left and a 1 life advantage, all you have to do is get 1 final tick.
Yeah, I love that play. That was a gorgeous play from 18 and Cracked. Go ahead and play things slow and steady, wait for that push, and then get themselves a guaranteed 1 tick the way they played that out. Got themselves a full wipe. Sure, you're spawning extremely close to the B site now, so you're not really too worried about things, but this time around, you don't have the glide bomber. Excuse me, yes, you do. You earned one during that last time around. You now have Classic towards that spawn as well. You have Assault pushing up through the middle of the map, so you have so much influence everywhere. Can you back this up, and can you find that last tick? And it looks like they're trying to eye it out, but can they find the frags to back it up? In Classic, getting caught off guard, it's just not going to be enough. 22 seconds left, and a miracle has to happen.
Yeah, but no respawns remaining here from the villains. Fire on the staircase. You're just trying to stay alive right now. Assault knows exactly where you are. Tons of time left. Realistically, if you're looking for 18 and Cracked around the corner, Zaptius won't be able to win the gunfight against Assault. 3 players left now. Make it 2. 6 seconds. You got to get on the point. You got to stall the clock. If you're Shawnee, you come from behind, but it's Fire who's going to be there. Classic in a 1 versus 1. Gentroid's going to be able to win it. Can you get back to the time? No. The answer is a villain's clutch there towards the end. They'll be able to win this 3rd control round. Go up 2-1 here inside of the Tuscan Control. But more importantly, that should have been an 18 and Cracked win. The villains just play that absolutely perfectly, even when they get down to a 1 versus 1.
Literally came down to that 1v1. There's nothing else to it. You find all the kills you see on that site, you know you have yourself the advantage, and even then you have that much more lives going into this overtime if you do get there. And I'm sure the way 18 and Cracked play that initial defense is they're probably going to follow suit, and they're going to grab themselves another one. Looking at this default setup, looking at 2 players going in the middle of the map, 2 players going towards A, looking to find themselves some kind of a defensively playing off-up. You already find 2 frags, and you find the exchange, but that's in the middle of the map. You just got to watch for these spawns. You got to make sure nobody comes from behind you, and I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem right now, seeing the A is going to be ticked up. You want to push the side anyways and find the kill, but Frosty beats him to it.
Well, back and forth. Shawnee and Exceed will pair for another double. 18 and Crack trying to stop the villains from getting that first bit of progress over towards the A site, and as Exceed comes for one, Shawnee will go ahead and run along the railing to the outside of the map to find the second, deplete the zone just a bit, but Gintroid will be there. 3 in a row here for the villains as they now make their way back onto the point. 2 in a row from Fire, looking for potential streaks. It's a long way away, but I might as well mention it, because that's really the only thing that the villains have had looking up for them, at least in the way of Fire here thus far.
And the way they're allocating themselves across the map, I mean, Villain's doing a very good job of just spacing things out, grabbing the time where they can, and just playing it slow and steady. But that's looking to eventually bite them with the way that 18 and Crack is getting a little bit more aggressive here. They're finding the counterplay. They're getting themselves on the side. They're diminishing that first tick, or that last tick of progress, excuse me, onto the A side. So, I mean, time is not looking into the favor of Villains right now. Unless Gintroid can make a play, go ahead, be behind that spawn, find some kills, and follow up, and there it is. You gotta go ahead and do that time in, time out. And Frosty with your backup, he can definitely make sure you can get that job done.
34 seconds left, looking very close to what Villains had on the first offensive try. They didn't have really that much time after they put that extra minute on the clock to make their way back over towards the B zone. Right now, though, they do have a 3-life advantage, so that is looking up for them at least. Zapti is going to be pushing through the middle of the map. You get through Church, now you get behind Shawnee, and this could be big. Shawnee turns around, is almost able to go ahead and catapult his victory onto a kill in Zaptius, but with 3 in a row, you look to Adam Assault, who will win the gunfight over the top. With an automaton, you favor that gunfight every day of the week, and you fancy your chances to get back in control of your own spawn. Player number 4, going to be sitting in the back. That's going to be Shawnee. You're looking for a push up at the moment, but nothing coming just yet.
Even then, you know, this entire side has not really been touched yet. Just go ahead, play it slow and steady. But even then, it's still a big problem. Looking at Villains already pushing through, able to have themselves a 3-life advantage and looking to possibly close things out with this one round alone. If they can go ahead and get themselves to a stage where 18 and Crack has themselves their last couple lives, and it's looking extremely like that right now with the way it's sitting at 6 and 11. It's not like what we saw last time where you only had a couple seconds left in the clock. You have an entire minute left to really just push up time in, time out. With things diminishing that much more, 6 and 9 in that live count, that's all it really comes down to.
Last time we saw 18 and Cracked on the offensive try, it was the Villains who, in a life disadvantage, were able to go ahead and win that round. This time, though, as the Villains make their push on offense here, 7-5. Shawnee will get taken down there. No respawns remaining here for 18 and Crack, but at the same time, Villains are about to be in that same position as well. Fire will just have to back off. Great help from Shawnee and the rest of the team who are playing the angle all the way from the back spawn. Classic, who's inside of the top of the Church, has to be careful because the push now from the Villains, the last one that they have and the last stab that they have at the B site, is going to be coming from a flank all the way across. They're going to be hitting from the Church. Classic in towards the top. You find the first. Classic goes, tries to snap for the second. Fire over Zealous around the corner. Shawnee will help out, though. Now it's a 1 versus 3. Zaptius has gotten crazy 3 pieces before, but in 3 seconds and not being able to get across the map, won't be able to do it here. Defense prevails yet again, and we'll see around number 5 in the Control.
These 2 last rounds of Control have probably been my favorite I've ever witnessed. I mean, getting into the stage of the game where you actually go ahead, utilize all of your time, utilize all your lives, and it all comes down to like maybe a 2 or kill 3 differential at the end of the day. I mean, you just don't see stuff like that every now and then. And even then, it's going to be 18 and Crack on this defending side once again, because at the end of the day, regardless of how they sat there and stood on that first round, not looking all that good, they've warmed up now. They had a massive life advantage on that second round when they were on that defense. When they go ahead and turn things around and say, look, now we're back on the offense, they played it slow and steady, and it was just so close that you really just couldn't even see if there was a differential. But the first frag goes to Gintroid here. Not too big of a deal, but you go ahead and see some time being bought for Villains on the A side.
Fire with a nice little double. Offensive side has made a nice little niche play up the map. Gotten them control over towards that A site. If you're the Villains here, you just want to be able to have a lot of time to work with after you progress through the A zone. Again, as I kind of alluded to beforehand, those first 2 offensive rounds didn't look great after you only had about 30 seconds on, plus the minute after the fact. So with a minute 30, it's very difficult to get over towards B, let alone with a life disadvantage that you had. Exceed, though, will try to come from the middle of the map. Shots onto Fire will be there and good for 1. Exceed will find 2 in a row. Fire and Zaptius will fall. Now it's going to be trades back and forth, but a 2-life advantage to the defensive side of 18 and Cracked.
Even then, you can already see him holding down these sites, looking to say, all right, what's going to be their next move? Well, they're probably not going to hit A, being we see all these players Exceeds allocated a little bit more aggression towards that side of the Villain spawn. So saying, all right, check mid and check B, because they're definitely not towards A right now. Nobody's there checking mid. I mean, you've already slipped behind this player, but Assault and Classic able to find 2, making this life differential look a lot more doable for him. And Assault shutting down that B push, but the first attempt, not the second. So things looking good for him on the Villain side, but can they make the follow through? Can they find some time on top of these kills they're getting across the map?
Holding him back, 25 seconds left. 18 and Cracked, trying desperately to be able to close out this series in a 3-0, their win condition to get into playoffs. and of course move on into stage 2 later on after playoffs is over, is to win this series versus an 0-6 Villains roster. And if you would have told me the Villains were 0-6 coming in this matchup, I would have believed you from the previous matches, but how have they played so far, it wouldn't even be an indication. 15 seconds, you've closed out everything over towards the A point, through the middle of the map. Exceed will fall to the hands of Glow Frosty. Gentroid now making the flank. You're trying to add just an extra minute onto the clock, and with a gunfight there against Assault, that might have been the biggest one so far.
And even then, you can already see the push coming out. You can already see him only sitting at 10 lives. So, I mean, if it does come around to getting onto this B site and playing that out, that's going to be extremely contentious, to say the least. You already see 18 and Cracked having themselves 3 resets as a squad. You see that last second barely make it, but you're across the map. You're already pushing for B, and this is extremely risky because you have no time so far. You have A as a backup, but you don't have the lives to allocate to really get yourself there.
But he saved the game. If you don't make that B play there, you lose completely because you come off spawn and you don't have the availability to go over for A. Now, you got 3 players who are all stacked over at this B site. No respawns remaining if you're the side of the Villains. You're still on the points right now, but players number 1 and 6 actually just ran past each other. Great time for Classic. A 3-0 sweep overall. They'll qualify for playoffs. They'll qualify for stage 2. They'll end 5-2 after the round robin portion of stage 1 of Challengers Elite. Pat yourselves on the back, 18 and Cracked. Unfortunately, though, on the opposite side, the Villains will go completely defeated throughout the entirety of stage 1, 0-7 overall.
And even then, I mean, I'm kind of with you. That point you mentioned earlier, if you sat there and told me that Villains were 0-6 right now, I mean, I haven't really seen them too much and I haven't casted them, but I mean, the way they performed today, it makes me question why. I mean, they've had themselves such a great showing. They've sat there, got themselves so many points. Every single round was extremely close for them, and they had such a good roster. I mean, they just looked outstanding. But even then, that point you mentioned earlier about the warranting of a roster change or something else, I mean, that's all a little bit more to kind of decide and discuss maybe later. But as of right now, I mean, that control was really what it came down to, what we really had to put a lot more emphasis on. I mean, that control was so close for 2 of those rounds. We saw offense really stepping things up. We even had the stats to back it up.
One thing I will say on the side of Villains, great series overall from Gentroid. Maps 1 through 3, leading the way not only in slaying, but was making so many good and crucial plays for the side of this Villains roster. You could point to Zaptius and say in map 1 had a great showing. Unfortunately, if you weren't here with us or you're just joining us here, map number 1, it was Villains' map to lose, and well, they did. 18 and Crack came back from about a 100-point deficit and was able to win by 21 at the very end. It was a game 5, or rather a game 2, round 11 that we saw instead of map number 2 as well. That saw the side of 18 and Cracked being able to come out on top and best that, winning 2 offensive rounds at the very end in a map that had 8 rounds of straight defensive round wins. So that was crazy in and of itself. But I mean, you look to Classic, they're 37 and 30 overall.
Yeah.
Every single player on 18 and Cracked inside of the control dropped over at least or over 30 kills.
And even then, I mean, every single one of them had at least over 20 of those not being traded out. So, I mean, that's a big differential looking at these players, how they play the game so far, playing it slow, steady, just going ahead, playing out their lives when they know they're by themselves and having to play it safe. I mean, we sat there and saw Frosty and Glow Frosty sit there and have so many kills, so many non-traded kills, but it's because he got aggressive so many different times and sat there and really didn't care about his life on a lot of those occasions. But even then, at the end of the day, you find 18 and Crack pulling things out in a 3-0 fashion. But, I mean, look at that score line. It almost makes you seem like this could have been some kind of semifinals game or something.
Yeah, no, again, like, you would never have known that Villains were 0-6 unless you would have been told, at least just looking from this matchup specifically. But again, you know, condolences to the side of Villains. Unfortunately, your season, or rather your stage 1, doesn't necessarily go exactly how you would have planned after you didn't even have to go to the lower bracket for the qualification portion of just getting into stage 1. Either way, though, we look at a 3-0 sweep here for the side of 18 and Cracked. Congratulate them as they make playoffs. They can just rest a little bit easy now and work on some of the things that they need to come playoffs. But while we go ahead and get our next match set up here on the ClutchGG stream, again, we do have the main stream at youtube.com/COD Challengers going on right now, where the side of Whatever It Takes is playing up against Bearclaw. And Bearclaw, they're trying to scratch away at a reverse sweep. They're up in the Hardpoint right now. And this series is 1-2 them. Whatever it takes, again, they need to win this series in order to qualify. If they don't, it gets a little bit mixy in the understanding of everything, and then we have to go to the Team War versus Path to Pro match later on in the day, and everything just gets wild. So that match very well could go to a Game 5, so go ahead and check that out again, youtube.com/COD Challengers. Either way, we're going to set up UYU versus Texas Nation. When we come back, we'll have that for you and more here. Don't go anywhere, and go watch the other stream too. everything is now turned upside down. If you are watching the main stream, as you should have been at youtube.com/COD Challengers, Bear Claw Esports reverse sweeps whatever it takes and absolutely shakes up the entirety of the standings. Now this match has even more implications than beforehand. My name is McCormiel, along with me is Mick, and well, let's just try to explain this in the best way that I possibly can. So, first and foremost, the thing was, whatever it takes, you easily could have qualified for Stage 1 in playoffs with the win against Bear Claw. However, they reverse sweep you and now knock you down to 4-3. Guess what teams are tied at 3-3? Path to Pro and Team War. So, looking at Path to Pro and Team War real quick before we talk about UIU and Texas Nation with the whatever it takes match just ending, if Path to Pro wins versus Team War on the mainstream, whatever it takes would be out by virtue of head-to-head wins from Path to Pro, whatever it takes, and then Path to Pro's in Team, or whatever it takes is out. So that would be that scenario. That's the first one. But again, that constitutes Path to Pro beating Team War. Now for UIU and Texas Nation, things get, again, more interesting. So if Texas Nation lose to UIU, again, they were the third team in that three-way tie of second place teams who are all 4-2 coming into today. Again, if they lose to UIU, Team War wins, then Path to Pro is out. Team War is in. Hopefully that makes sense to you as it did myself. We'll try to break down UIU and Texas Nation the best we can now. I mean, overall, UIU, they've already locked themselves into the playoffs with 18 and cracked. So we have two teams that are guaranteed top 4 qualification and playoffs and going further. But Mick, UIU comes in first overall, Texas Nation second overall. Again, it was technically in the three-way tie, they were second overall. But overall, 16-13 map count. They win this, they qualify. Thoughts on that before I blow a gasket trying to explain anything else?
I mean, honestly, I'm ready to see the gasket, man. I'm ready to see it. I want to see it blown because, I mean, I'm loving the energy here, everything being turned on its head. I'm sure you and I love chaos just equally as much. So, I mean, everything going ahead and having a storm brewing up now is making things a heck of a lot more interesting, and I'm sure it's going to have a lot more drive behind this match. Surely for UIU to hold down their spot, but Texas Nation now, a lot more's on the line for them, for them to really just hold things down and really perform here today.
Overall, UIU, again, you come into this, you don't really need to win this match. It doesn't really matter if you win or lose it, but going 6-1 overall would be funny. And then just being able to shake things up even further by knocking Texas Nation down a peg and then forcing them to have to wait until the Path to Pro and Team War match to see who's going to make the playoffs would be even more, I guess, comical in a general sense. So hopefully they come out and they play as hard as they have the last few games. And, you know, if you are looking at Texas Nation to make playoffs, then, you know, you're going to have to play them inside of the playoffs most likely. So might as well get a feel for how things are going to be in a realistic series when you're both going as hard as you possibly can. Either way, we'll look at our best of 5 map set here. Gavutu for map number 1, Berlin for Search, and Tuscan for Control. Final maps of 4 and 5 will be a Bacage and a Tuscan. Need we go the distance? But just looking at those first 3 maps, there's a lot to go off of. Simply the fact that overall, UIU is not the strongest hardpoint team. They come into this at 4-7. S&D's kind of been their saving grace for series. They take some good swing maps too. But Texas Nation is a team that has a clutch gene when it comes to getting to map 5. So more importantly, they're 10-2 overall in hardpoint. You have to feel like in this series, if you're Texas Nation, your win condition is not only winning those hardpoints, but taking all respawns with it.
Yeah, I think that's really what it comes down to. I mean, UIU having an outstanding record in S&D just overall, that's not going to be the place you can really go ahead and cash all your chips in on. I mean, even then, you want to make sure to just cash in, as you said, on those hard points once again. And even then, just every single respawn, knowing that if you go to a second S&D, sure, you're going to have a little bit of a feel, but you're not going to have the same map. You're not going to see a repeat of these teams. You're not going to see the same thing once again. There's going to be some diversity, and I'm sure looking at UIU and the way they played thus far, they're already going to have that switch up ready, and they're going to make sure to beat you just as equally as, meaning punishing as they did that first time around. But even then, that's all up in the air. Maybe that S&D could be completely on its head right now as the rest of the league is, and then just completely give us something new that we haven't expected.
I mean, North America as a whole has been an absolute bombshell of just, I don't know what to expect overall. We had expectations kind of going into the qualifiers, and the qualifiers, even then, it was shattered. We had no idea who was going to make it out. We didn't even get our second team overall in Real Madrid making it out because they played a grudge match against Texas Nation earlier on, and, well, that was Kismet who ended up beating his former BBG roster for Built by Gamers last season, and that was the first domino in many that have led us to this point now. So overall, you look at the UIU roster of Phantoms, Johnny, Scrap, and Rex. Obviously, Phantoms and Rex have been a duo for the last couple of years. I say years lightly, but like, you know what I mean overall. But more importantly than that, you add Johnny and Scrap to this roster, who are S&D stars. They come into the scene. Really, this is kind of their breakout year with Respawn. But I mean, Scrappy has played so well so far this season. Same thing can be said about Johnny. And the biggest thing that I look forward to more than anything else, and what I'm going to enjoy now that we know that we're going to see them in stage 2, is how they will continuously build each other up in terms of both of those two duos, and how Johnny and Scrap can teach so much about search and destroy, as they already have, and what Phantoms and Rex can teach those two young bucks about Hardpoint, about Respawn in general, and how to win a best-of-5 series time and time again. We saw Phantoms and Rex all last year inside of the Challengers Elite. Remember UT crew? Yeah, well, they're basically back again, but kind of.
And even then, it all comes down to whether they can really sit there and step up and say, you know, kind of, well, it needs to be a definitive today. It needs to be yes or no, and it needs to go ahead and come out with a bang. And we can already see a bang of a frag grenade, and we'll go ahead and grab those first 2 kills. To follow up on Johnny there, who's going ahead and slaying on site, but Jordan General following up as well. Make sure Texas has themselves at least one heck of a good start for themselves.
Into P1, UIU is going to be looking for a break right on back. Scrap and Rex going to be pushing up from that right portion of the map. General's going to be able to walk away with yet another kill. That's 3 in a row to open up the game here for Texas Nation. You look back for 4. Potentially, Breezy will go ahead and find Phantoms as trade. So, bit of a pinstripe kill feed, but more of a 3-2-1 trade for Texas Nation. You'll think about rotations here as you see UIU already making their way down towards the ship.
Even then, I mean, that's kind of exactly what they have to. With only 8 seconds left on this last site, I mean, UIU needs to make the exchange. They got to make the trade. They got to go ahead and get themselves to the other site and start setting up for what they can. But Texas Nation already going ahead and keeping the bigger game in mind. Looking for P3 if they can. Going ahead looking for those spawns. Possibly, sure, it's a little bit of a longer haul here. But, I mean, P3 is a little bit more of a money hill. So you're looking for that exchange. You're looking to go ahead and cash in on that. But that's a big problem. You can already see that everybody on site, including Johnny, most definitely, finding that double kill, able to close things out. Go ahead and buy some more time here for this P2. But with 40 seconds left, there's still a lot to take. It all comes down to whether or not who's going to really go ahead and have that, whether or not we're going to see some more contention to stop it all.
That's a little bit of time for UIU. You turn back around to the middle of the map. Johnny's going to be on 5 in a row. You find Havoc as well. You're looking for 6 and potentially the last couple of streaks that you need here, which would be that fighter pilot. Kismet down the staircase, going to fall directly into the hands of Johnny. Another 4 down here for UIU. They've gotten themselves back into the game. More importantly, they've got themselves the first lead here on Gavutu. Texas Nation, again, this is a match where you have to win this best-of-5 series in order to qualify directly, or else it's just going to kind of get thrown into a toss-up.
Yeah, and even then, I mean, the toss-up really isn't too much of a big deal for UIU. They still know that they're going to stand out on top, but I'm sure they want to make sure their lead is a little bit more definitive. They're not really going to sit there and have the news broke to them and say, look, then we can throw this match because it still doesn't matter. That's a ridiculous ideology. They want to be as definitive as possible when they go ahead into this running, by themselves going to that playoffs and say, look, we are on top time in, time out. We know what's going on here, but even then, Texas Nation able to step up, give it a little bit of contention here, able to go ahead and bring some variety here into the matchup overall, as they do find themselves some good frags, some good time here now, looking to get back on that side with 35 seconds left. And even then, with the frags from Phantoms, he may be the big differential to go ahead and stop this out.
Love that play there. When Phantoms goes ahead and creates that pinch play off of spawn, you go ahead, use the glide bomb to get Texas Nation out of the time. Phantoms will once again get right back on in, trying to double up on some streaks here early on at 11-4 for UIU. 15 seconds left here on P3. Off-screen engagement goes in the way of Scrap. You're going to be able to win yourselves the rotational spawns over by the next Hardpoint. And of course, you should be able to lock down this tower side of the map relatively easily. Texas Nation, they're still pretty far across. Take a look at the mini-map. You can see they're not even at the halfway point of the map yet.
Most definitely not. That's a big problem for them. They got to go ahead and get themselves under that rotation, knowing that P4 is going to be a massive money hill for UIU, and they're already set up for it. Instead of getting a lead as well, and in 15 seconds, I mean, they've already grabbed themselves that much time on top of the site and to go ahead and give themselves that lead differential they've needed so far, but you just can't let the break come through. You see so many players rotating to the middle of the map, looking for some presence here and there, but, I mean, where's the break going to come through? Because you already see Kismet at the head of it, going to go ahead and fall, so that's that snake head already being cut off, but can the rest of the nerves of the body go ahead and make the moves that's necessary to really get themselves onto a site? And it doesn't seem like it's going to be there, but if Phantoms can step up and really just hold this angle here, find some more kills, because Johnny's going to fall a little bit quicker than expected, it's going to make things look a little bit more difficult. With only 15 seconds left, you're going ahead, you made the exchange, you've gotten on the site, but now the site's going to go to the completely opposite side of the map. So UIU not really too scuffed up about this.
Gunfight's won initially by Havoc. Johnny trying to push up towards the beach. A full 60 seconds of UYU there is fantastic. Here's the thing, though, Mick. With Texas Nation being 10-2 overall inside of Hardpoint, UYU, this is one of their best opportunities to play an extremely good Hardpoint and respawn team right out of the gate, get some additional practice before we get into playoffs. They've done a great job of being able to hold down not only team pushes from Texas Nation, but shut them down at the exact same time. And as we see Jordan, of course, go on 4 in a row. Mr. General himself, unfortunately, wasn't able to find any streaks there, but has helped his team and the rest of Texas Nation find a good, decent bit of time while keeping UYU in the back half of the spawns, backed by P4.
Even in the way they're set up so far, I mean, Texas Nation looking pretty good for this P5 thus far. I mean, even then, they don't have enough time to really get themselves to an even threshold in terms of the count. But, I mean, to go ahead and find themselves some more points. Get to that 100-point area, find themselves to be at least within the discussion for this match. And with only 10 seconds left, you're already going to see the rotations come through. You're already going to see UYU set up for this, saying, look, leave them to whatever they need to. This is going to be a 4v5, but even then, now it's not, because you already see UYU players dropping left and right. Is it going to be enough, though, to really go ahead and create a stall?
UYU will be able to get themselves back into point number 1, start accruing some more time. Running up the scoreboard yet again. First 10 seconds go their way. Here comes the first break, though. Rezi will be the one to get a kill onto Scrap. Second kill comes in the way of a nade, and then Kismet will go ahead and find that last player there from UYU as he gets a double kill to end things off. So, while UYU are set up nice, it only took about 15 seconds for Texas Nation to come get that break. Ever since then, it's been 7 straight kills to their name. UYU are going to have to look back on a break. Yeah, you want to get towards that bottom middle of the map, but you also don't want to give up 30 seconds of free time.
Yeah, you can see that the only contestant there is going to be Johnny trying to push up, and it's just not going to work out. Knowing that the rest of the team is now going to be reset back towards that spawn area, there's just no real hope for them to make a break when you already see only 10 seconds left here remaining on this P1. You see the rotations. You already see the Texas Nation players allocate across, but Phantoms going there with the double. That's going to be pretty big to set themselves up for some initial time here. But, I mean, that's been the biggest problem for UYU. They're ready for the rotations. They're there off the get-go. But, I mean, they just don't follow through. They don't find an entire site. The only consistency we've seen out of them when it comes around to a single site has been P4, and that's the easiest to defend.
Problem was there, Texas Nation, they were trying to hold UYU in a spawn trap on the left portion of the map. They actually got a squad spawn all the way back on the right, so they were able to start pushing their way back to P2, which allowed them to have that early break in on the Texas Nation players. Sure, you get a good maybe 60 almost seconds of time there if you are Texas Nation on P1, but UYU has done a stellar job of being able to recuperate themselves, get back into the LST ship, and find themselves a nice bit of hardpoint time right off the rip. They get themselves the lead once again, too. And with 25 seconds left, the contest is here. You're really just playing for scrap time right now because an off-screen engagement win by Dylan Rex will set you up for P3 now on the beach.
You can already see, yeah, Dylan Rex just setting up for this, having the ideology to sit there and say, I'm going to make this forward investment. The rest of you need to go ahead and start looking across the map. We can't go ahead, get a little bit narrow-minded this time around. We've done a little bit too much this game because UYU not having the strongest hard point, they're definitely, as you said, having some pretty good retaliation. Able to go ahead and make themselves relevant time in, time out, making things look really good for them, but that's only because the game is at such a close threshold. Whenever you see one of these teams probably run away with it, Texas Nation will be more considerable to a comeback to the likes of UYU, and they got to keep that in mind constantly in the back of their head.
Last time it was UYU who made a break on this hill. It was Phantoms who popped the double on the flat gun and a streak that came in. This time, no, it's Texas Nation who invests not only streaks, but Breezy will come around the corner. Breezy, oh, so nice. Unfortunate team kill is going to come through. That was 4 in a row. That might have been able to equate to some streaks. Although you will see that 4 in a row at the top still staying there. Unfortunately, that streak is now null. As Scrap and Dylan are working together to try and hold down the rest of this time. They'll eclipse the 200-point mark, and the rotation over towards P4 this time will be held down by Texas Nation. We'll see if they can hold against a very, very powerful onslaught of UYU players getting ready to set up and fly across the map.
You already see making their push in and doing a pretty darn good job at it. You see Texas Nation spawning not too far away from sight right there on that boat, but UYU being on the flank, able to go ahead and wrap in. If you can go ahead and keep old Dylan Rex and Scrap alive here, if they can just play it slow and steady, you can set yourself up for a pretty massive break if you find the right flank at the right time. But instead, Breezy there with all 2 to go ahead and make sure to set up for the side even more so. Texas Nation looking to grab the entirety of the side if things really align right, but even then, that's not going to close out this game. You're going to go ahead, you're going to sit 10 seconds short, you're going to go just really pick up scraps every here and there afterwards, but those scraps alone have gotten you to this stage in the game. You've had some massive breaks, and speaking of massive breaks, UYU may have one right here.
Phantoms, big streak over the top. Brezzy, Havoc, both going to fall. Johnny can still play through the backlines here. Big break. It's about as close of a hard point as you could have wanted through the first, basically 2 rotations of hard points here on Gavutu. UYU, once again, will reclaim the hill, start building their lead back up. If they hold on to the rest of this time, they should be at about 200 240, maybe about 230 now that the contestant has come in. But Texas Nation, they'll get the final break. They actually might get the final laugh because look at what they're set up for. They have all 3 players who are now on the right side of the map getting ready for P5 that's about to pop. They're going to be able to get a ton of time.
Most definitely, Nari, you can already see the rest of the players looking to get around the map because Johnny coming on that flank, coming out on the outside, looking to get those spawns reset for his team. Thing is, Texas Nation, look where those 2 players just spawned, right there on the boat, literally so entirely close that they can just literally spit onto site off spawn if they wanted to. And I mean, with the way they're going ahead and being so closely oriented to it, I mean, it's looking really good for them. This is going to be that final site unless you see a lot of contention or nobody touching it, which is what we're seeing so far. I mean, we got to see some footsteps on there. We got to see some presence. And even then, I mean, not too much pressure on yet until you see Texas Nation slaying out right there and grabbing some time as well.
That was the most important thing. You wanted to clear off the site so you can go ahead and secure the rest of the time. The spawns, you know they're going to be close from UYU. 13 seconds now for Texas Nation. They hold him out from the front. Brezi's there. 3 in a row. You look to Havoc, who's also on a 2 spree of his own. Inside, gonna be the push-up. Dylan Rex challenges Brezzy. Gonna be able to hold on here for the time. Gonna have to come down to a rotation now, and Phantoms is the only one here, at least right now, for UIU, but Scrap through the middle is gonna be able to find one. The break is here from the side of UIU. They get in the point. Kismet around over towards the right. Havoc, the first one to go. Phantoms, a huge 1v1, potentially game-saving here in map number 1. Inside, Kismet's gonna win it with the pistol. Nobody else there from UIU. Maybe a slight contestant at the end here. Scrap will be there, but Kismet finds the last kill. Texas Nation, they'll take map number 1. And as I said beforehand, that might have been the best hard point that you could have asked for here for spectating in map number 1. Texas Nation, no, they get it done. That's the first step of 3 that they need to qualify for playoffs.
Man, if you're Phantoms there, you just can't push these sides. I understand you want those extra seconds, but this is going to be the end of the game regardless one way or the other. Play it slow. Wait for your teammates to come for that backup. I know you want to grab those extra couple seconds, but Texas Nation, if you slay them out, that's great. They only needed like 2 seconds. It's not that big of a deal for them. They're not really scratched up about that. You can't really go ahead and take that gamble all or nothing for the rest of your team to really make that decision to say, look, if I grab this frag, okay, great. We grab 2 more seconds and they get another wipe. And I'm not really ready for it. Sure, it's a 4v3 at that stage, but looking at P1 and how small it is, there's just not enough space to really set anything up. So regardless, at the end of the day, we expected Texas Nation to look pretty good on that hard point, and they most definitely did, although it was like a little bit of a sleeper game for them, I want to say, compared to what they are capable of. But, I mean, everything being said and done, UIU looking like a pretty good warm-up for them, especially going into their map of choice, or excuse me, their mode of choice.
I mean, it's all over the board for Texas Nation. They've had incredibly close hard points. They've had hard points that it didn't even look like the other team was trying against them. But at least here on Gavutu, it's been a recent string, at least, of a few close calls. You think about Team War, 18 and Cracked that they played against, 250-211 against 18 and Cracked, 250-195 here on Gavutu. This is a map that they like to play a lot, and they are going to continue to do that. But they also like Tuscan. And that's the big thing. Either way, though, we'll save the hard point and kind of the respawn conversation for another time, because we talked about Texas Nation, how good they were at hard point, Mick. But here's a map and mode, rather a mode specifically, that UYU absolutely loves. It's been their bread and butter over the course of the entire season thus far. 8-1 inside of Search and Destroy. And while you can thank that to not only Scrappy, but Johnny as well, 2 S&D stars that have now paired up with Dylan and Phantoms, to be able to have not only an incredible roster, but more importantly, just so much talent when it comes to Search and Destroy.
And especially for a lot of that talent to come from assault rifles. That's absolutely massive coming in here into Berlin. I mean, going ahead, making sure you had these players to go ahead and have your watch. Play that Oracle. Play from the back, not really get too overzealous, and work with the rest of the team and say, you go ahead and get aggressive, my MP40s. Do what y'all got to do. You SMG players, just get right in there, get into the fray. If anything does go south, I have that backup. I am there as some kind of a fall through. And even then, if the time lines up correctly, and if we play this right, I'm there with the fight with you. I'm there to back you up constantly, and you will not lose that. Just play your life. Go ahead, get a little bit slippery. Go ahead, start sliding around. Utilize that mobility to the maximum extent that you have, and I'll make sure to be there whenever you need it. And it's just stuff like that creates such dominant lineups for Search and Destroy that you really just can't contest too well unless you have another assault rifle who's on the attacking side, per se, has pushed up and found another power play, which, I mean, when you're on the attacking side, the way that Vanguard is set up, and even then Call of Duty generally, Activision doesn't really like helping the attacking side. They know that you have the bomb. They know that you go ahead and decide where the fight's going to be picked. They're expecting you to have a setup before you put it down and at least find a frag before then. So things looking a little bit difficult here, but regardless, at the end of the day, it's still going to be coming down to whether these teams are prepared for it.
Overall, this match has a lot of implications, but again, if Texas Nation is able to beat UYU here, they will qualify for playoffs, thus resulting in a qualification for Stage 2. Remember, it's not the top 6 teams that make playoffs this season, it's only the top 4, thus subsequently also resulting in you making Stage 2, as I said beforehand. Either way, though, your bottom 4, you get relegated. You're going to have to go through another 16-team bracket to be able to requalify for Stage 2 at Challengers Elite. And, you know, if you weren't here when we were framing up some of these situations that had to go down in order for some teams such as Path to Pro and or Team War to be able to make it into that top 4 besides Texas Nation and whatever it takes, because they were in a 3-way tie for those last 3 playoff spots since UIU was already ahead of them, you might want to go back and either watch that or, of course, go tune into the main stream on youtube.com/COD Challengers, because their Path to Pro is going up against Team War in what will maybe even decide not only both of their fates, but easily one win, one loses. The team that wins could find themselves with a playoff spot, especially if Texas Nation loses this match.
Yeah, I mean, so a lot on the line here for especially Texas Nation to get themselves a dub, but it all comes down to whether or not they can sit there and find themselves to look pretty good on the S&D mode, where UIU finally finds himself to be dominant most of the time. But you go ahead and get such an elongated series, if you go ahead and win this out, you know that you're not finding that map 5. If you lose this, you're not even worried about map 5 because you're not going to get yourself there, period. So it all comes down to this first frag, whether Texas Nation can open things up in I would say a flashy manner, but we're just not seeing too much yet.
Johnny will play a slow corner. Your UIU, you've worked your way into the ace site, and a great kill over the top from Phantoms will be paired and complemented oh so nicely with Johnny there too. Kismet in general taken off the board here early from Texas Nation, leaving Havoc and Brezzy left in a 2 versus 3. 38 seconds left, bomb yet to go down. You'll grab it yet again. Havoc can actually go ahead and pair up with Brezzy, who are both making flank play here. Scrap actually is going to run directly down in the middle. Might be set up perfectly for Havoc to be able to find a kill.
Even then, that's a Scrap takes the bait. He's got to go ahead and play this slow, and he just doesn't. He rushes right out, giving Texas Nation so much to be working with, knowing exactly where that bomb is. You see the exchanges coming through, but it's not going to matter at the end of the day. 1 for 1 for 1. I mean, when you find that initial trade, and especially one untraded kill at that, somewhere in that round, that's the differential to really throw things out for Breezy to make sure that kill follows through. You find a first round, and you're already beating UIU in the mode they find themselves so comfortable in. So a great way for them to go and open things up, especially on the defending side, but that's to be expected. Let's see if they can answer on attacking as well.
The last time, but minimap being blocked by player request. You're going to see that frequently here on the community side of things. Teams that want to give away their strategies. Teams that might go back and watch the VODs later. Phantoms will be moved all the way over towards A site on the defensive side, playing a nice, slow, backwards angle. Dylan Rex will get a bit aggressive onto Jordan General in the middle of the map. Will walk away with a kill. However, Havoc once again will find a trade, looks for the second, but Dylan Rex will find his second kill of the round. Scrap will pair for a third. It's a 1 versus 3 this time for Kismet.
Even it's a massive one of that in Kismet. I mean, he's potential of a lot of things. He already finds one, so making things look pretty doable. Finding a second one as well, so things are looking to really stir up now as it's a 1v1. So, sure, he takes his shots on the side, and he could have sat there and slithered out if he went for the other side of the truck, but instead just opts to just go right open and go ahead and get fragged down. So UIU doubling down, saying, look, here's an answer of our own. We're going to go ahead and win a defense as well. We're going to grab ourselves a quick little handshake and go on to the next one so you can start finally winning these offense.
What could have been there for Kismet would have been a 2-0 lead inside of the search and destroy. Falls in the way of UIU yet again. So overall, go back to a standstill here where both teams are tied. Adjustments potentially made on the offensive side here. Who knows? UIU going to be the team that has to go ahead. Make their way either towards the A or the B site. It looks like it is going to be working its way over towards B, though predominantly here. Havoc going to look for some tasty shots into the little market area, but instead of the mailroom, nothing will happen except a bit of back and forth with some information being earned. Resi will finally find a first blood onto Dylan Rex. The bomb will be down as well.
That's huge. I mean, already having themselves to have the bomb down and then also get themselves a frag as well, untraded at that. I mean, not really too much there to be playing with for the likes of UIU. You're down a man. You can't figure out really how to allocate yourself. You're just kind of in a miscombobulated area. But when you find the exchange and you see another player coming out as well, Jordan General with that first frag here in the game so far, finally lighting things up, able to go ahead and get themselves into consideration for this matchup. I mean, looking good. You just got to make sure to watch out for Johnny, who's right under you, finds that kill. You go ahead, play out the life, and I'm just loving what Texas Nation is doing.
1 versus 2. Oh, did actually Phantom spot out Brezzy there? Don't know if he actually did. Kismet all the way in the back, watching for a flank. Phantoms was able to push straight up. Kismet wins the one-on-one there. Well, I didn't expect that, but I will take surprises when I can get them. Texas Nation, a 2-1 lead.
And once again, we see the defense coming out on top. We get to see one of these attacking sides really get the bomb down, and that's the one thing we haven't seen. We even saw that in the last series. Teams are just not really too preemptive of getting that bomb down. They're a little bit too passive when it comes around to finding for a setup, and that just really, the way I compare Search and Destroy to is a game of push of war. It's not pull of war or tug of war. It is push of war. The slower you get yourself onto a site, the more time that allows for the defending side to go ahead and get a little bit more up close to your spawn, to really make a play, to get behind you and really set something up. But I mean, they're just really being very lackluster. But Texas Nation able to switch things up, playing things slow and steady, and Kismet looking and having some kind of spidey senses tingling right now.
Texas Nation, such a fun roster to watch. Has been throughout the entirety of the stage thus far. Nate over the top. Johnny's going to be able to go ahead and find Kismet, though. Trade trying to follow around through the back. Won't be able to find it just yet. So as Johnny escapes out with a life, you look for two more players who are going to be making their way back around the site. Off-screen engagement goes to Havoc. General looking over the middle of the map at the moment. You look from a top. Oh, Dylan Rex. So nice, but Havoc plays that door perfectly in the middle of the map yet again. We'll look for the second challenge, too. Oh, there's a reason they call him the greasy man himself. He played that oh so perfectly, slithering around the map, slipping and dodging for a couple of kills.
And finally setting up Texas Nation to get themselves another lead once again, to go ahead and find 3-1. I mean, that I want to say is a swing round and a pretty good extent as well. I mean, going back and forth, and now having that 2-round differential. This is where you go right back to where you find yourself sitting at home where you've won prior. You go back to defense. You've sat there and done a pretty darn good job at it thus far, so you're not really too concerned about the standing for the rest of the game. You just keep up this momentum, even if you lose attack once again. Just make sure to double down this defense, time in and time out. Play it slow and steady. Find that first frag, play it slow from there out, and make sure you have a teammate to back you up, because the trades from Texas Nation are looking out freaking standing.
Johnny will toss the stun on in. Kismet with a nade over the top. Ellen just jumping around the corner. You see Havoc making a long flank all the way around the back. Phantom's going to get caught out from behind as well. Havoc goes for the second on 4 in a row. One more kill here. We'll go ahead and get you the glide bomb. Scrap looking to challenge out over towards the left.
Wow.
Johnny, that's actually probably the biggest kill. Even though you're in a 1 versus 4 and you don't want to lose there, you're in a position where you really probably aren't going to win that round. The only thing that you do in that situation is you shut down streaks from Havoc.
And even then, Havoc, I mean, I don't think he's really too worried about losing those streaks. The way he's been performing in this game thus far to even get to the point where he can consider getting streaks is just really, really good for them. Already going ahead, getting themselves up to be at 1-4 right now in a mode where they say, all right, UIU's looked outstanding in. We said this was going to be a trump card of theirs. They had to sit there and win out something that just wasn't expected from UIU. And Search and Destroy, where they've been so dominant thus far, to be down at a 1-4, they're definitely capable of a comeback, but I mean, just even being in a scenario where they have to even consider that, it's just a little bit scary for them. Oh my
Havoc
God.
is just on a different level inside of this match right now.
Dude, like what?
He just flies around the corner, has no regard for anything. Hey, might as well just go ahead and play the bait and switch as well. If you challenge him here, even if you're an automaton at this range, I don't think Havoc's going to lose this gunfight. You challenge around the corner, he's going to be able to find that kill. So just as quickly as he was knocked off streaks, he's knocking on the door of him again.
I mean, knocking on the door, I'd say kicking it down. I'd say blowing it up. I mean, I'd sit there and kind of put a little bit more emphasis on that. I mean, Havoc is literally just doing exactly what his name entails, creating havoc. I mean, that round alone was just a double down to show that he's kind of ticked that he didn't get those streaks. He's saying, you know what, go ahead, shut him down. See what I'll do. See what I'll do. I'll go ahead and I'll take an entire team in the next round. I'll sit there, get that much closer to him once again. And even on top of that, we're sitting at match point, and I got momentum, baby. I'm feeling really good. I mean, sure, we're not attacking anymore, but we're on defense, and this is where it all started.
Havoc once again just flying up the map right now. Finally play a bit more passive, sit in the corner. Kismet, though, he'll make quick work of 2. Havoc looking for a stun around the corner. Johnny will go ahead and bounce back with a double, though. Shuts down Havoc and Kismet in the round. 2 versus 2. If you ever needed a round win, it'd be here. Down 1-5. Got to start the reverse sweep, well, not sweeping necessarily, but basically reverse sweep all the way for a full sail instead of the search and destroy here. I'm going to go down over towards A in a 1 versus 1 at the site.
Slow and steady here for Texas Nation, just trying to find a way that they can set up a crossfire for each other, go ahead and work as a team. You can already see him doubling down onto this side, and even then the defuse is going to start. It's going to come right here from the flank. Oh, Jordan is not ready for that, and Breezy's also on the defuse, finds that first kill. Now coming up from the stairs, he's going to go ahead and get eyes, but instead, it's UIU being a little bit quicker, able to find that kill, able to play off the bomb and get themselves a second to make sure this game doesn't end just yet.
I thought maybe, just maybe for a second, he was going to be able to walk away with a nice little pistol kill and some great timing there on the Phantoms, because he was getting caught sprinting with the pistol out as well. Either way, they were both making separate plays of their own. Phantoms comes out on top of it, keeps the search and destroy alive from UIU. I will say, one thing I kind of had written down in the notes collectively before coming into this match was that UIU, they've got the clutch gene. Now, does that constitute coming back from a 1-5 deficit? Well, maybe not. But, I mean, overall, it does bode well, at least for an attempt on the comeback. This would be only their second search and destroy loss of the entire Elite Stage 1. So it'd be definitely eye-opening if Texas Nation was to be able to take one off of them, just like Dylan Rex was able to take the first blood off the board of Texas Nation.
Which I'm sure Texas Nation had themselves a little bit of an eye-opening moment once they heard about that last game that went on and how things could really stir up for them. So I think that dedication's coming out, and that kind of drive is a little bit more driven now. It has a little bit more fuel into the tank for them to say, look, now we have a much bigger reason to win this out. I mean, UIU has nothing to lose because they literally have everything already within their grasp, and they want to look good, and that's the only kind of reward they have right now. It's not really too much of an incentivization is what we got, because you can already see him Havoc getting right back into his element, able to find so many frags, now making it a 1v3 with Johnny being an elite of it.
Well, you got to go through Havoc if you want to clutch in a 1 versus 3. Keep the search and destroy alive. You've also got to get a defuse, too. You want to find the first. Hop out to the middle of the map. Does Havoc read that? Surely he heard it.
Sure.
Challenges down to the right. Shots in the back to Johnny. What an incredible search and destroy there from Havoc. 13 kills inside of map number 2. Helps Texas Nation to a 2-0 lead over undefeated UIU. Now, again, this isn't a match that UIU needs to win. For Texas Nation, there's a lot riding on this match. Most notably, of course, a win qualifies you for playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, we can already see him stepping up for it. Going ahead, being a little bit asleep at the wheel when it came around to that hard point. Gavutu not looking all the best for him, but I mean, the way they've sat there and became a consideration. Winning out S&D, the one thing that we sat there and said that UIU saying, this is where you wake up. Well, I can't keep repeating myself all day and saying, look, this is where you wake up. You got to wake up. I mean, this is where now things come to where you are on series point now. Sure, you've had yourself a great season, but I mean, when teams go back and look at this, sure, they don't have a mini-map to look at. All they have to do is look at the scoreboard and say, yo, Texas Nation beat UIU, who's looking like a definitive kind of top dog right now. Even if it's that much close of a race, it's still a race nonetheless, and it's not going to be a blowout by any means. So Texas Nation, look at themselves, look extremely relevant right now, and obviously, one person we could credit a lot of that to is just Havoc. I mean, let's be real here.
Overall, taking a look at just everything in a general sense, right now, UIU is obviously down 0-2 to Texas Nation. There's still a chance for them to come back in this series, but at the same time as this is playing out, Path to Pro Team War just concluded map number 1 on the main stream. That's youtube.com/COD Challengers. That has implications for the rest of not only of playoffs, but of course, whichever team wins there, then it goes to say, okay, which teams out of the top 3 tiebreakers had lost their games? Well, already you saw 18 and Cracked beat their team earlier on in Villains. They've qualified, so that's 2 already. There's only 2 more teams that can get a qualification spot, in Texas Nation, again, knocking on the door of being able to find that one of the last 2 qualification spots for themselves. So then it just kind of comes down to whatever it takes, and the only way that one of the teams comes in over whatever it takes is if Path to Pro beats Team War, and that didn't happen in Map 1.
Yeah, it most definitely didn't. So, I mean, everything looking right now for Texas Nation to go into a control, I mean, this is going to be a pretty good setup for them. They say, all right, we've won Respawn. We've won the game where it comes around to where you have to rely on your life and play it out. Yep. We've sit there and covered both sides of the spectrum so far. Let's find that happy little medium. Let's get aggressive, but not too aggressive. And even then, if somebody's going to do it, let Havoc do it. Let that man go off. Let him push those spawns. Let him lock things out. Let him go for a side if something really comes down to it. We all need to be the followers right now while he's on fire, just so we don't get burnt in the process.
Well, while we set match number 3 up, we're going to take a really short break. But when we come back, the conclusion potentially of Texas Nation versus UIU, and we'll see if Texas Nation can close this out in a 3-0 series and qualify for Stage 2. back. Texas Nation up 2-0 over UYU. We go to Tuscan for Control in a map 3 where Texas Nation, if they clinch it, can qualify for playoffs and for stage 2. All comes down to if UYU can stay alive and win a swing map that they've been known to be able to take time and time again in a multitude of series.
Yeah, I mean, every single time we sat there and seen UIU, we were able to really step up. I mean, we feel like Texas Nation needs a little bit of work on their control, but even then, the way they've been slaying out so far, the way they went ahead and got themselves a lot of kills on that last S&D, I mean, they got to go ahead and step things up right now and end it here, put the nail in the coffin, and give themselves a pretty darn good run. And even then, already going ahead, being pretty explosive with this start, having a life lead, and having the entirety of A captured as well.
First zone off the board. UYU going to be forced into a very strong defensive hold. Tons of time to hit over towards that B site. Tons of time to dwindle some time down as well. More importantly, the lives that are going to be needed in your favor if you want to break over towards B. Havoc was so good in the search and destroy. I mean, it's hard to highlight any more of a player that had a single bigger impact for the side of Texas Nation throughout map number 2 than Havoc. Kismet has started off nice in a 4-2 start here, but overall, the greasy man himself, he was doing literally everything.
Most definitely was, and I mean, it looks like he's going to try and continue with that right now. I mean, the way they've sat there, already got themselves a life lead, still being towards that B side. I mean, just the momentum looking at Texas Nation right now is just kind of unfathomable. The way they're playing the game right now, just getting themselves across the map, the way they're pushing up, the way they're just lining themselves up. Thing is, getting a little bit scattered right there towards that B site when everything really starts to matter. Jordan General not really being there for the backup that they needed, able to find the shots and getting closed out as well. So that makes things look a heck of a lot more even now, especially with UIU sitting on top of that B side.
UIU, you've done a good job of holding on not only to the defensive side, not letting a tick come through, but taking almost an extra minute off of the clock. Tons of time drained. Still a 2-life advantage for Texas Nation. Plenty of time to work with here. It's not the end of the world, but we'd love to have this push be the defining moment of the game thus far. Johnny will be traded out by Kismet. 3 versus 3 on the point, but the close spawns in towards the church should allow for UIU to have a number and man advantage back over towards the point. Brezzy around the corner. Dylan Rex will go ahead and snap onto the head. Take down Brezzy in terms of a trade, but as Jordan General is there, everybody just going back and forth, and Kismet and Havoc will pair. They're going to be on the point and stopping the clock.
So great little setup here for them to go ahead and keep on going, but I mean, to go ahead and get on site, that's enough that you're already asking for. Sure, you don't need to double up, you just need to go ahead and play things out slow and steady, knowing that UIU doesn't have nearly as many lives right now. Only having it a 4 differential, so that's an entire wipe. That's really kind of a hand, but I mean, the way they're slaying out, they're not really worried how many kills it is. They're looking good enough to go ahead and shut it down, get themselves to deteriorate that side a little bit more so, bringing it back down to 1 tick, and with only 28 seconds left remaining, Havoc just kind of playing things slow, looking for spawns, even though his team has not killed anybody yet to really spawn them out.
Oh, but he plays such a crucial part in being able to open the doors up here, because now UIU is going to be forced to back off. Havoc's going to actually be able to find the second one. So now you're pushed up onto the point. 10-5 left. 15 seconds on the point. Havoc playing ring around the rosy. He's going to be able to find another one, but Scrap is there for 2 quick kills. If you're Kismet, you're the last one that's even close to the site, and now you're just going to have to foot race back on over towards that B point. If you're player number 1, you're the only one that's going to be able to contest. Those last 3 kills don't matter right now. If you can just hold out on the time, Jordan General is just going to dip right on down to the point. The pistol kill can't come through, and despite Texas Nation looking like they were going to take that offensive round, UIU, they hold the fine on the defense.
So that's really good for them. I mean, sure, it was a little bit scrappy there. They don't have themselves nearly the lives to really set up to go ahead and have an advantage when it comes around to this overtime if we do get to that round 5. But, I mean, still winning that round nonetheless, knowing that defense is still going to go the way that, you know, history has kind of repeated itself, is good enough. You don't have any inconsistencies here. You go ahead, you make sure not to have any outliers in the lights of Texas Nation, who's already been such an outlier so far. You know, you finally stalled them a little bit, and that's kind of a good thing to really just kind of rally around if you can go ahead and continue with that. But UIU now being this attacking side, doing exactly what they did, just going right for this A side, looking for the kills, but Havoc already finding the first one of the round, but a trade comes out soon after.
Dylan Rex will find the second one over at the A point. Looking back over towards the middle of the map, doesn't realize that it is going to be a full push essentially over towards the north side of the mini-map, at least for right now. Kismet Brezzy will go ahead and find 2. Kismet, that was actually a really nice nade onto Dylan, because now you don't have to check that close corner, and you can just slide directly onto the site and take those long-range angles as you so please. Scrap trying to play up and towards the top of the church. Yeah, that's a nice position. However, you really don't have anything going right now, except the fact that you can start making your way over towards B. Finally get those last few kills, and of course I had to open my mouth, because now the entire A site's open, and they have a body at B.
Yeah, and even then, you can already see him setting up for A. I mean, the rest of the team just needs to rotate at this point. Jordan General and Dylan Rex being in a 1v1 over here. It all comes down to whether or not you can win that to hold down A. But it's already secured. You're not really too concerned about that. You're going to go ahead and start looking at this B side. And UIU not really being too prepared for that. Nobody really set up towards Church. I mean, everybody just kind of coming in from the side right now. Phantoms and Scrap. I mean, it all comes down to whether you can have the rotation, have the teammates kind of go ahead and come from an alternate avenue. And I'm not seeing that ideology right now. A very straightforward approach. You're down lives, and even then, it's looking even worse as you find already both those players to drop instantaneously, 23-21. But here it is. Johnny coming from behind.
Didn't realize that Johnny was playing over towards the flank. They also don't realize that Dylan Rex is also there. So player number 4 and Kismet's actually going to spot that out. So Jordan General will come from behind. Going to be able to find not only the flanking player, but the second player inside of the radio as well. Reforce everybody back to the spawn side of UIU. But take a look at player number 5. UIU have done such a good job of being able to sneak multiple players through into the spawn side of Texas Nation. One good big kill here from player number 5. Well, you're going to be able to push yourself onto the point.
You most definitely will, and that's all you're really asking for. You're just going to go ahead and shut down General right here. I mean, sure, you're in a 4-life deficit, not too big of a scratch-up, because, I mean, we saw Texas Nation hold things out last time to that 4-life differential, but, I mean, everything dwindling down here, you got to make sure to play this defense out. With 50 seconds remaining, UIU has a lot of chances to rotate here into this site and find a kind of a different angle to come at it from, but I mean, with not as nearly as many lives to be playing with, you got to make sure to play it slow and steady regardless. So Phantoms is going to go ahead and go for that default setup, hopefully bide some time for the rest of his team to go for this angle that they're looking at. But Havoc already in the back saying, you know what? I don't care what you're doing. A 3K for the man to set things up, shut things down as well to really make things look a heck of a lot better for him.
19-10, kill advantage to the side of Texas Nation in a staunch factor and manner. They're just trying to play back on defense, waiting for the UIU push to come out of HQ. Scrap's actually going to be able to find the first one. Havoc, though, from behind, going to be able to find one, make it 2. Brezzy there. The last player from UIU that's going to be able to make the push up the map is going to be Scrap. Really, you just want to play either for the time here or just back off and don't feed Brezzy more streaks. That would also be the cool thing, too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of there with you. Just don't go ahead and give anything unnecessary over to the other side, because Texas Nation able to go ahead, win out that defense once again, kind of having a small life differential. Every single time we've seen, I mean, we saw much closer control in that last series, but I mean, this time around, it's still nothing to really just kind of scoff over. You see the glide bomb coming through for Brezzy there, so you got yourself a little bit of a follow-up if you do want to have to hit that B side, and you will have to eventually. Thing is, can you hit A first? Can you go ahead and secure all that time? And they definitely went ahead and did that in that first time around, but this is definitely going to be a really big crutch for them if they can really play off.
Havoc working his way in towards the church. Just so good at being able to find these first blood scenarios, get some great early engagements. Stun checked in the middle of the map, we'll find one. Johnny actually making a nice little flank around the back. Almost is able to find Kismet. Tries to escape on Al, but Kismet in the way of Automaton. Shut everything down for UIU in terms of hopes of dreams of being able to work in from behind. Phantoms and Scrap, the last two, working over towards this A site. Second tick of progress going to be there. This is looking very similar to the first offensive round the Texas Nation had, where they got that A zone right off the rip. Had about 2 minutes and 20 seconds to work with.
Yeah, I mean, still plenty of time here. Texas Nation still stacking things up, having themselves a 5-kill lead right now. So looking pretty good for them to go ahead and reset, find that alternate avenue that I sit there and mentioned earlier. Jordan already kind of going ahead, coming up the stairs, already catching Dylan Rex off guard, and even then, doubling down on the Scrap. So a really good look here for them to really just go ahead and get some space to be working with. But, I mean, nobody else in the opposite side of the map. It all comes from a straightforward push. You have, of course, over there to the side, got old number 2, and who's that going to be? It's going to be Mr. Havoc once again, going for something crazy. But even then, Brezzy going crazy on his own, finding 2 there, pushing up into that spawn, and possibly able to grab a tick of time as well.
Brezzy got streaks. Kismet was able to find the final kill before he fell, so that's at least a glide bomb to use from Kismet, but my goodness, Brezzy now make it 6 in a row, 3 straight kills. You look to Phantom, who's up on top of the plateau. I thought Brezzy might have been able to do it to Jordan General one more time right there, but luckily enough, UIU, they stopped the bleeding for a little bit, but Mick, with 1 minute and 45 seconds left, you have an 11 life advantage, and UIU, they've only got 6 respawns remaining.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big problem, and Texas Nation's at the stage of the game where they can go ahead and sit in the back. I mean, you already see Havoc setting up towards these spawns, playing it slow and steady, just saying, look, let me kill, 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 and this is not looking good for UIU whatsoever. There were so many things stacked up against them, but the problem is they didn't have a player stacked up on B side for Texas Nation, but I mean, that's not a big a deal now. You have a player going ahead sitting on top of that site. Honestly, at this stage in the game, they're not even too worried about time. They're just trying to sit on the site, go ahead, bait some players out, and grab the kills to follow up with it, because with 18-4, Texas Nation can just really just do this over and over and over again, because now, I mean, you have no respawn.
A lot of streaks invested here from Texas Nation 2, trying to get over towards this B point. They're just going to play the time here, let the players directly sprint up the map into them. The 2 versus 16. What a moment that would be if you're able to pull it off. But scrap in a 1 versus 15 situation. You got everybody from Texas Nation making their way back towards the point. So you're not going to win that anytime. Look, you're never going to win a 1 versus 15, but it's at least a cool thought to have, unless you have red boxes on your screen, then maybe. But either way, 2-1 up now, Texas Nation. 1 round of control will secure themselves a spot in the playoffs. Of course, be in the top 4 conversation. Also moving on to stage 2.
It's a great way for UIU here to go ahead and kind of get themselves back in the game to answer that, but looking at their offense earlier, it wasn't all that sparkling. It wasn't all that fabulous. They couldn't really do too much there. They couldn't really get too much time on B. They went ahead and possibly found themselves almost a tick, but just fell a little bit short. This is where Texas Station goes right back in their element. Defense, time in, time out. I mean, it's what we expect every team to win, and finally getting an attacking round where they almost found that in that first one as well. I mean, they're just out here to play, and even then with the glide bomb coming through, or the strafing run, excuse me, that's even better. You clear out an entire half of the map, you know that you can push up now.
So difficult for UIU to push into Texas Nation. The slaying has not been anywhere close. You look to the opposite side for UIU. 9-22 from Phantoms. Again, I said this beforehand, but UIU, this is not really the most important match overall, but this is definitely a solid Texas Nation team to get tons of practice against before you go into playoffs, because you've already locked yourselves in. For Texas Nation, you're trying to get there, but if this is how we're going to see UIU show up against a roster like Texas Nation come playoff time, I'm not ready to say that UIU is still that top team.
Yeah, I mean, sure, the record speaks volume, but is it loud enough to go ahead and tell you really to translate what's going on here right now? Because Texas Nation looking outstanding so far. UIU, sure, some people could say, oh, they're strat saving or something's going on right now. I don't think that's the case. UIU wants to keep this win streak up. They still want to go ahead and work on the mechanical skill, and I think that's exactly what they need to do. They need to win more fights. They got to get more frags, and quite honestly, it seems like the one player that they got to go ahead and make sure that can't do that isn't going to be one player. It's going to be 3. Havoc, Prezi, and Kismet are all just putting in absolute work right now, having nearly 25 kills and 16 deaths respectively for each one of them.
Dylan Rex trying to bop on up, but more in general, 3 quick kills in a row. Did the AR last year, this year, picking up that MP40, at least here on Tuscan. Versatile players inside of the Call of Duty scene, specifically in Challengers, is always a nice little look in, but UIU, once again, they're trying to break back over towards this B zone with a 2 life deficit. Only about 60 seconds to work with in terms of overall time. It's not like it's not doable, but it's going to be so damn hard to get there. Not only that, when you have to win a second round as well, because you're still down 2-1, you'd have to reverse sweep in the entire series to come back. Prezi's just going to hold an angle all the way through the spawn. He's going to be able to pick up 2. Now that's another 2 life lead. UIU back to the respawn block. Player number 4 and Kismet pushed up to HQ.
Even then, Prezi already putting in the work where he needs it. I mean, going ahead, getting across the map, finding kills here and everywhere, but I mean, going ahead in the back, it's going to be Kismet shut down, looking to go ahead and kind of close off those spawns. So 37 seconds left, 9-9 in this live count. UIU could actually answer here with an offensive round. It all comes down to whether or not you can have the right angles. You can have these players come in for the church because they're just looking for spawn every single time. But the glide bomb finally comes through. Kismet looking to go ahead and make a differential, but a team trade comes out as well at the same exact time. We see Havoc and Prezi both get clipped off, but Kismet's there for the trade. This is looking a lot tighter than we really expected.
Only 30 seconds left. Phantoms looks all the way to the back. 2 quick kills come in. 3 lives remaining for Texas Nation. They're going to get a few kills there, Jordan. In general, some beautiful shots. But that's traded in the way of a grenade. Havoc making a flank all the way around the back. Scrap's going to be able to pick it up with the radio. 1 versus 15 is hard. 1 versus 5, a lot more manageable, but you're not going to be able to get it done. Offense for offense, we go back to back. UIU, they'll force a round 5 in control.
And even then, I'm very intrigued to see who could go ahead and have the defending side for this time around. I think it may be UIU with that 1 attacking round they had because of how big the life differential was on that one specifically. But we're going to have to see because I feel like that's what it all comes down to. With each team winning an attack and a defense so far, it all comes down to this right here in Texas Nation. Yep, stepping up, having themselves that life differential coming to their favor off that round that they want attacking alone because it was so much more dominant. Things were looking a little bit sketchy there for the start of UIU in that last one, but they would have turned things around, go ahead, find the right kills at the right time, and look outstanding. But with the missed stun grenade off the get-go, it's not looking too well, but even then, you're not really too scratched about it because you still have teammates' presence there on that side of A.
First bit of progress over towards the A site going to be earned. Johnny, Dylan, pair for 2. A nade over the top from Havoc might be able to find 1, but more importantly, that entire A zone is about to be captured. And they're going to have so much time to work with back over towards that B site that at the end there, they made relatively quick work of.
Oh my god.
Kismet almost able to get the best of him there. Dylan Rex, quick kills up through the middle of the map. Like, these are the moments. If Havoc can't win a kill there on Scrap, this is where they start to make the push up and they can start getting the pinch plays active.
They most definitely could. It all comes down to whether or not they can really find themselves to get those pinch plays. And there it is. Something like that every single time. Find an alternate avenue. Get a little bit more creative with this map. Tuscan is so kind of varied that you can find yourself getting to some crazy alternate avenues if you really just sit there and kind of keep your eye on them. And I just haven't seen too much influence on that yet. You already see Havoc getting the read there towards the middle of the map, knowing 1 player's at church, knowing 2 players at church. Ooh, maybe a 3rd, but he's not going to know about him. Instead, he's just going to go ahead and play things slow. No, you have that life differential now. You have to lead for it. You go ahead and lose that out. So things are looking even now, but B site being the only place to hit now, it's going to always come back to that one constant. They're going to be pushing that site, and you got to watch B. You got to win those frags as well. And even then, Brezzy already going ahead and getting double teamed. It's stuff like that, man. You can't let it happen.
They're going to be able to start getting on the point here in just a moment, though. General, though, goes big for 2, paired with Kismet for 3. The last one alive, Dylan Rex, sitting in the corner right outside of HQ. Texas Nation, that was huge, being able to come off the respawn block. Swing those kills back in your favor. Now you want to start pushing up this map, making sure UIU can't make this push directly into your spawn without any sort of contention, especially since there's 3 different players now making their way out. Jordan General finds the first. Kismet there with a second. Brezzy good for 1, 2. Dylan Rex, guess what? Once again was the last one alive. And now with Texas Nation getting a 4 full man wipe. You see the yellow arrows start to make their frontward assault to the spawn at UIU.
Most definitely doing it. It all comes down to whether or not they can really sit there and make that forward assault actually translate into something, translate into some time, because Texas Nation looking much better on this defending side than they did in that last one. UIU not able to continue that momentum to where they can really make that much of a stand. And even then, with the way the spawns are going right now, they are spawning out. They sit there. They're going right back to where they sit there and originate from. And it's extremely difficult. They know they have so many roadblocks to hit on the way. Kismet being another one who sat there and already put out 1 player. 8 seconds left. They got to sit there and completely neglect any player who gets in their way at this stage in the game if they even want to touch that site. But Jordan General, too, I think that's going to be a sealed deal here for Texas Nation.
You can't get on the point. UIU, try your best on an offense. You can't go 2 for 2 there at the end. Texas Nation, with a 3-2 win in the control, will sweep the series over the top team of UIU, qualify themselves not only for playoffs, we'll guarantee those. We'll see them inside of stage 2 as well. Overall, very fun series. More importantly, though, that kind of shuts down all the hopes that Team War had of making it into playoffs. It's always crazy to look back overall at the head-to-head in different series and see what maybe could have changed pending a different result in that series could have at least got you into playoffs and made that qualification. So, unfortunately for Team War, you know, they're still playing on the main channel right now. They're up 2-0 in the series, but that was the main thing that they needed in order to get into playoffs. We'll take a look at statistics now, Mick, but unfortunate for Team War.
It most definitely is. I'm sure when they finally had that little glint in their eye to figure out, okay, well, I mean, if kind of history just follows itself and we're the only ones to step up, so we could definitely spell some kind of a comeback here. We could spell a completely new season for ourselves, but not looking all that shabby right now, sitting there just kind of doing the best they can over yonder. But, I mean, we got to sit there and talk about what's going on right here. Texas Nation looking outstanding here on this control. Sure, there's some shaky moments here and there going into that round 5, only to be expected when you're dealing with the level of competition like this. But, I mean, once again, everybody really stepping up and doing their job, especially Kismet. Once again, coming to life this time around, having the least amount of deaths in this team and having the most kills as well. I mean, the guy was a menace, and you can't really ignore that. It all came down to him just playing by himself, able to go ahead and play out that life pretty slow and consistently. But I want to say on that 4th round, that's where things kind of slipped a little bit for him, but it wasn't all that big a deal because you still rally up. You just go ahead, find yourself a 5th. You had that life differential when you won your attacking round, so you're not really too scratched up about it.
39 from Kismet, Mick.
What
a way to end out the series.
I'd say 40 bomb. Forget it.
Honestly, I mean, it's close enough either way. We'll look at the series one more time. As we said beforehand, 3-0 for the side of Texas Nation. It was close all the way through. 250 to 235. A 6-5 on the Berlin Search and Destroy. And then a Tuscan Control that went to round 5, where we saw ourselves with a 3-2 win or Tuscan Tuscan Nation, Texas Nation. And now, well, we have 3 teams that have already qualified for Stage 2, but more importantly, playoffs of Stage 1. Mick, the first team, well, it was the time that Texas Nation was playing in that game. UIU,
Yeah.
they were the team that had the best record all the way up until today. Before even coming into the end of yesterday's matches and into today, they had already qualified by virtue of overall map count, but again, record. They were 5-1. This will drop them to 5-2, but Texas Nation will also find themselves at 5-2 overall now, guaranteeing themselves a spot in the 4-team playoffs, and they'll join, of course, 18 in cracked. So did we expect other teams to potentially be in this situation? Yes. Am I surprised at the 3 teams that are here right now? Simply the answer is no.
I mean, even then, looking at all the competition and whether the teams have really panned out, I mean, looking at all these pools and how these teams have gone up against each other, I mean, with this 3-way tie, you're expecting somebody to go ahead and shut down UIU. And if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be right now. When UIU really just doesn't have anything else to gain. They're not really too stressed about something. And everything just kind of lined up right here for Texas Nation. I mean, this is a pretty good opportunity for them to say, hey, I mean, they are beatable. They've sat there, already lost a game. They've now lost another one. And things are looking a lot more even in the league here. So there's no definitive leader now. I mean, even though it's not all that big of a consideration, knowing how close all these teams are anyways.
Yep.
I mean, sure, there's some bottom barrel people that, I mean, all the teams can pick on now because that's always going to be there. But I mean, there's no definitive top dog now, which I feel like is a much bigger picture to paint for all these teams to say, look, nobody's really out of the realm of possibility here. I mean, even then, it was a 3-0. It wasn't a 5-map count. So that's a lot better of a standing for Texas Nation and 18 and cracked and everybody else looking at UIU to say, look, welcome to the club, buddy. You're nothing special, and neither are we. We're all hearing the same thing together. We're looking to go ahead and have ourselves a heck of a competition. It all comes down to whether or not you can step up. And every single map has been extremely close where these teams are stepping up. But in terms of the actual map and elongating the series, we just haven't really seen too much of that yet.
On the mainstream right now, Team War going up against Path to Pro. Team War have had themselves a 2-0 lead in the series. They're on a Gavutu control, tied up 1 apiece at the moment. Now, Mick, the thing is, if Path to Pro want to make playoffs, they still can. They just have to reverse sweep Team War, and that starts by winning the Gavutu control, which, again, you can watch at youtube.com/COD Challengers. In the meantime, here for the ClutchGG stream, we're going to wrap things up. We've got our matches done for the day. UIU lose 0-3 to Texas Nation. And, of course, we saw 18 and crack take down the Villains to qualify for playoffs. For all the rest of everything that goes on inside of Stage 1, you can go ahead and make sure you're following and subscribed over at youtube.com/COD Challengers, because that's where everything will be. Until Stage 2 or whatever comes next here for ClutchGG, that's when we'll see you next. Either way, enjoy Brody and Infinity over on the mainstream as they'll take you through the last match of the round robins.